That's pretty cool.
I agree. It's so
I'm going to go ahead and start this
He don't.
board meeting. I would ask if you have a phone or something that makes noise, put it on silent or vibrate, please, so not to disturb the meeting. If you're here and you're a visitor and you want to speak to the board and you're not on the agenda, you can fill out a speaker card. It's on the back table and get it to one of the staff, and then they'll get it over to me, and I'll let you speak at the appropriate time. With that, I've asked Commissioner Hartley to do the prayer and the pledge. If you would stand with us, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord Heavenly Father, and we ask you to go with us as we serve the people of Baker County. Give us wisdom to make the right decisions, Lord Heavenly Father. Keep our county safe, our state, our country, Lord. Watch over us, protect us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sarah, is there any changes or deletions to the agenda tonight?
Yes, sir. We actually have two changes. Under public hearing, items number 1 and 2 under first hearing. If we could remove those, they will be brought back to you at a later date and time, but we will not hear those tonight. That's ordinance 2025-06 and 2025-07. In addition to that, Sheriff Roden will not be here with us tonight. So item number 2 under elected officials, I will present that on his behalf.
Item number 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll take a motion with the changes.
Make a motion to approve with the stated changes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We had a chance to look at the consent agenda items. I'll take a motion to approve.
motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move into our next item on the agenda, which is the elected officials. I have item number 1, Brian Kramer, our new state attorney. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. I really appreciate the opportunity to come up here. And as you said, I was recently elected. This is my second term as your state attorney for Baker County. I really wanted to not take a tremendous amount of your time, but I wanted to give you, I wanted to first of all come up and say thank you for a couple of things. Introduce you to my new executive director. This is Rebecca Shinholzer. She's taken over as executive director in my second term in my office. And then just kind of give you a little bit of an update on what's going on with my office as it affects you all. Okay, and then of course, if you have any questions, happy to answer those questions for you today or individually at any time. And I've given each one of you my card, and I know you'll share it with Commissioner Bennett as well, which has my personal cell phone number on it. And I would encourage you to call me anytime you need me, as well, county manager as well. If there's anything I can do for you, I try to really serve also as a problem solver in the community. Of course, you have your counsel to do that for you, but sometimes there's a criminal justice related problem that you may have an interest in, and I'm always happy to speak to you about it. And one of the things I did not do well in my first term was really to make myself known and present myself to the commission and be available to you all, because you do play a really important role in my office. In that we have an office here in Baker County. You provide that to us. You fund our communications, you fund our computer services, and you provide us the physical plant, which is located here in the courthouse. Baker County is my second largest office in the 8th Judicial Circuit. The 8th Judicial Circuit includes Alachua, Levy, Gilchrist, Union, Baker, and Bradford. We have 4 assistant state attorneys here in Baker County. That's the highest number outside of Gainesville. Alachua County has approximately 60% of the population of my circuit, which has 400,000 to 425,000 probably by now since the last census constituents in the circuit. We also have 3 support staff members who help the attorneys. We have a victim services representative who works exclusively here in Baker County, as well as an investigator who splits time with Union County and with Bradford County. And those, we provide those services to Baker County. And I wanted to try to just give you a little bit of an update of where things are going in the future. And I was speaking with your attorney about it a little bit, because he was an assistant state attorney and he, for quite some time, and he, I think, feels the pain that we have experienced and understands the changes that we're making and how they affect you all. And what I wanted to tell you about is that we are moving into an age where currently we download, like if you wanted to watch a video off of Netflix, just like you download, but we download 26,000 videos or individual items of digital forensic evidence per month. And I have upwards of 9 people who spend their entire day doing that work. And part of that, we run all of our computer operations out of Gainesville. And we do that for efficiency purposes. So it is most efficient cost-wise for the counties for us to do that. And the way that works for you, and I'm sure the county manager understands this, but maybe may not come to you all that often, is we have what's called a shared IT budget. So that budget is the entire cost of IT for my office that is split between the 6 counties based upon a percentage of population. And Alachua County pays it, and then Baker County, along with every other county, reimburses their percentage share. So the big change in my office is a digital forensic evidence management system. So we are receiving hundreds of thousands of pieces of evidence per year of digital forensic evidence. If you can imagine, any short interaction that your Baker County Sheriff's Office has on the side of the road where a couple of officers respond is going to generate, and especially if they make a case, a lot of digital forensic evidence. It's going to multiple body cameras, multiple reports that are all digitized and sent to us, photographs, recordings, what have you, license plate readers, cell phone downloads, you name it, we're pulling that in. So we are getting to a point where we had to automate that process. We can no longer really do this process going forward in the future, as it's ever increasing with the population of Florida increasing, the population of our counties is increasing, which means the number of criminal cases is increasing. It's just not sustainable to continue to do that on the same way that you would download a video off of Netflix, right? It's just not sustainable. So this system, it's a company called Nice Justice, operates where we are able to either send an email to whomever it is, a victim, a witness, a police officer, doesn't matter, that they can drop and drag that piece of information and it automatically indexes it into our case management system. Or there's another methodology to do it, and I'm here to give a big shout out to the Baker County Sheriff's Office, because the Baker County Sheriff's Office is leading the circuit in adopting this technology and utilizing it. It's tough on agencies, I'll be honest with you, for them to make these kind of changes that are not, that they don't want, they didn't agree to make. And Baker County Sheriff's Office was like, yes, we'll do it. We're with you. They're right there with us as a partner. Never a word of we don't want to do this. And I think that's representative, I hope, of the relationship that I share with the sheriff, because he and I work in partnership with each other. And they're going to be our first agency to come up in an automated fashion. And I think that's something that the county could be proud about. So that's the good news, is that's where we're headed, and it's going to modernize, it's going to be a huge step forward in modernization of criminal prosecution in Baker County and across the circuit. That's the good news. The bad news is it costs money. So if you need me to come back and explain all the costs when you get to your budget cycle, I will. We know approximately what the cost is for Baker County. Your percentage share will be about $12,000 additional dollars. We have not had a budget increase for the state attorney's office for those type of services of any significance in quite a long period of time. I mean, I started being the executive director in 2012, and I don't think we've increased that budget since 2012. So I wanted to put you on notice of it, but I also wanted to explain to you that it is for a really, really good cause. And ultimately, my hope is that it's going to save the sheriff's office money, because they spend a lot of time answering our requests, saying, going into their system and saying, oh, here's a video, let me get it for you. Here's a photograph, let me get it for you. It's a lot of FTEs for them. You know, it's a lot of time for their officers to spend time not doing something that's constructive to stopping crime, but that's something that's part of the prosecution process of what they've already done. So my hope is that ultimately this money comes back to you in the form of savings, or at least for better law enforcement services being provided to the citizens of Baker County, because the Baker County Sheriff's Office can spend less time on the minutia of answering our requests. So you're going to see that coming up in your budget, but I think it's going to be money well spent for you. And I obviously will come up here and answer to you as I am required to during the budgeting process if should you need me. But that's really where we are, and I don't want to take too much more of your time. I am more than happy to answer any questions that you all have. And I appreciate you.
I think I'm good.
Saves the taxpayers dollars just because not having to hire somebody, you can't hire somebody for $12,000. So the kind of proportionate cost to us is still a benefit to the citizens of Baker County.
I agree.
And I hope that's what the Sheriff's Office has recognized, is that this really is, maybe in the short term is going to be a little bit of cost for them, and in the short term it's going to be a little bit of a headache for them, but they're forward thinking and they're looking at it and saying this is going to be good for Baker County. So I appreciate y'all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 2 on the agenda, Ms. Little.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So each year, as a nation, we all celebrate National Police Week. This year, it has been identified as May 11th through May 17th. And our local sheriff, Sheriff Roden, does a fantastic job, he and his agency, on putting together a ceremony. It's always held at Christian Fellowship Temple. There's a lot of effort that goes into it. It's a really nice event every year. So that event will be held on May 8th of this year, again at Christian Fellowship Temple. So in honor of that National Police Week, we do have a local proclamation that we would like the board to consider adopting. And efforts also with this process, I just want to make sure that we identify who will be doing the ceremony. Mr. Chairman, I believe that you are available to
Yes.
read the proclamation at the ceremony.
I
Okay?
should be there. Lord willing.
All right. Well, I will make sure that we've got a printed copy for you. I know we typically like to present it in a frame to be able to
Yeah.
give the sheriff's office. So we'll make sure that's taken care of for you, and we'll get you one. But unless there's any questions, this is the annual National Police Week proclamation again, and it's got some information about this year's events. I'd be happy to read that if that's the pleasure of the board.
Yes, ma'am. Let's read it into the proclamation is on the record.
Sure, Mr. Commando or me? Just play thumb war
Ms.
over
Little
who
reads
gets
better
to
than
read
I
it.
do, but I'll read it. A proclamation to recognize National Police Week of 2025 and to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are approximately 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Baker County Sheriff's Office. Whereas nearly 60,000 assaults against law enforcement officers are reported each year, resulting in approximately 18,000 injuries. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1791, more than 24,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty, including 2 members of the Baker County Sheriff's Office. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 37th Annual Candlelight Vigil on the evening of Monday, May 13th, 2025. Whereas the Baker County Sheriff's Office will hold their annual memorial service on May 8th, 2025 at Christian Fellowship Temple Church beginning at 6:30 p.m. Whereas the Candlelight Vigil is part of National Police Week, which takes place this year on May 11th through May 17th, 2025. Whereas May 15th, 2025 is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags should be flown at half-staff. Now, therefore, the Baker County Board of County Commissioners formally designates May 11th through May 17th as Police Week in Baker County and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities around the nation. Passed and duly adopted in regular session this 15th day of April 2025.
Thank you, sir. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make the motion to accept the proclamation.
I second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much for that. I'm going into our next item on the agenda, which is our public comment. I have no speaker cards, Ms. Sarah, so we'll move on to our next item of new business, emergency management update. Mr. Blanchard. I didn't see you one time today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hopefully you're not tired of seeing us yet. So I'm going to start off with, this is sort of our update that we're bringing to you guys every meeting, and I appreciate the time that you take and have shown us. To start off with, I want to let you know one of the things we do is negotiate and have meetings with, it's called a project manager with FEMA to discuss our different projects. And we submit information, we get requests for information back and forth from the group that actually works above them in FEMA, and we were having some difficulties doing so. We've employed a lot of the partners with us at the Florida Department of Emergency Management and some specialized people also inside FEMA, trying to negotiate with a group called the CRC, and that group is the one that we're not able to talk to, but our program manager talks to them on our behalf and then comes back to us with questions they have about the projects, including the engineering reports that we've submitted to them. And we know that process has not been a good process to work with, and it's complained about by many, many counties throughout the nation as storms have happened. I've been dealing with it for decades, and I wish FEMA would change the way they do their process, but they don't. So working within that process, our program manager, we've tried to give him specific information to give back to answer some of these questions, and it was not productive. The state, unbeknownst to me, already knew that we were going to ask for a change in program manager because it was becoming more and more difficult to get him to work in our behalf each time. It was almost like I call Groundhog Day. It was like it was the first time he was seeing many of these projects, so it was becoming frustrating. So we actually sent a letter to not only the state but to FEMA asking for him to be removed, and immediately they all granted it and said it was basically, we were surprised you were so patient and took so long to move forward with it. What was disappointing was they all thought this, and nobody wanted to help interject with us to move forward with it. So we basically fired him and have got a new program manager that's not been named yet. I believe who it is going to be, but they've not officially been named. But we've already seen a lot of things in the background where they're fixing stuff already for us that have been a problem. So it appears to already be a success to help move our projects forward. Now, we're not under any timeline issues with that, but again, we've been trying to work with the person. And as I say, I generally give everybody a chance to fail before I move forward. But he failed and we move forward. So it's a good thing. So that was probably the biggest thing that's happened over the last couple of days, and I'm excited to say that. One of the things I want to bring, we got some updated numbers on individual assistance with two specific storms that we were dealing with, one under Helene and one under Debbie. Specifically under Helene, to our individual residents in Baker County, we were able to give them, through FEMA, over $2.5 million. We're going to give you some handouts in just a minute. Dennis will pass them out. And then under Debbie, again, individual assistance, we're at $1.2 million of individual assistance, and that's ranging from, probably $700, $800 to $5,000, $10,000. There was one even, I've seen even larger than that, to individuals that had issues that their insurance didn't cover and things like that. That is amazing me to see those numbers, because we've not seen that before talking to FEMA in the past, because of the resources we were able to bring in both from FEMA and the FDM people to help our residents to come in and apply and teach them how to do that, and then also the documentation they needed. So it was a great learning experience. We're learning to do better in educating our public on how to do that. One of the applications we have is self-reporting. So in our app, they could actually take pictures at their home, send them to us to quickly then get FEMA to come out and then verify some of these things. So that was a phenomenal. Now, in some of the information we've already supplied asking for reimbursement, under Helene for the Sheriff's Office specifically, it's been obligated the amount, a little over $31,000 coming to the Sheriff's Office. That was for us going out and doing cut and toss and some other things for the storm and our overtime. And then also under Debbie, we have another a little over $18,000 coming back in reimbursements. Now, under the counties, we just got notified on the 11th that the county's going to have a little over $50,000 coming back and stuff that we didn't generally do in the past. So that is a great windfall in a sense that it's not, we don't have 100%, but that's still $50,000 versus zero coming back to help in the general fund. I'm gonna have Dennis go back over the actual projects and then talk about some things that our COADBO has been doing.
Thanks, sir.
Warren left first. With hurricane season 2024. Good evening. Good to see you all again. Thank you, Board Chair and Commissioners, for the opportunity to present. I'm going to start by kind of picking up. So the first handout there, John covered the first 5 items on there. We give an overview on this first sheet, and then on the when we walked our way through that, then I want to kind of bring you up to speed on some very specific progress points for our individual projects. So I put down on this sheet here those values you see in front of you. These were what our original estimates were from our damage assessments and bringing the engineer in and working up what it was going to cost us to repair and or mitigate these projects. There are 2 specifically that I want to bring to your attention. The boat ramp, you'll notice that figure on the right in red. That's the disconnect that Director Blanchard was just talking about. That PDMG, that program manager, should have been advocating for the county. That number on the left, 895, that's what we took to them and said, hey, this is what it is. And the CRC, that siloed group that we can't meet with, that's the dollar figure they assigned to our boat ramp. And so that role is exactly what Director Blanchard was just talking about, and these figures in red are why that change needed to be made. So I do want to just drop down really briefly, and I don't think we talked about this at length, to the pending FHWA projects estimate. So Kirkland Branch was removed from the FEMA projects because it turned out being on the Federal Highway Administration jurisdiction. So FEMA is not permitted to offer reimbursements for that project because of that jurisdiction. We have to go through FHWA and ultimately DOT. And so I referenced the last time that we had pulled it off there, but I don't think I specifically explained to y'all what it was. And that value is what the engineer basically stated it was going to cost us to make that repair, which will tie us right back into the next page, and I'll just start working my way down. So 125 in Kirkland Branch, that project that is now in DOT and not FEMA, I got an update this afternoon, and this afternoon's update basically said DOT isn't doing anything and moving anything at the federal level, and there's nothing going forward. Couldn't tell us a status, could not tell us when they would be back, when we would be out to start assessing the repairs. So Chris Lee and I this afternoon had a discussion. Chris Lee forwarded a request to Florida DOT to have them come back out and inspect the culvert again to make sure that that roadway is safe, and that in this long period of time that we can be sure that that roadway is going to be there when we need it. So they haven't responded with a date yet, but they're going to send a DOT team or an AIRS team back out, do another inspection, and verify that there's no immediate risk, safety, and life for that box culvert. When we get updates, I'll forward it to the board and make sure that you guys are included in that conversation.
How quick does FDOT come out usually?
I really wish Chris was here.
Off cycle, we've never had to call them before. They get inspected annually, but this is a relatively new process for us to do it this way. So, I mean, typically the inspection request would happen quickly, though.
So Lola Butler, who is our regional Florida DOT representative, she was the one, I had a conversation with her this morning asking for the update, and she said, you know, it's not coming. And when I explained to her that there's a concern there for that safety, she said, well, do this now and CC me on it, and I'll help you stay on top of them. I'm anticipating that's going to be sometime forthwith, next 2 weeks probably. I'm hopeful. Okay. And just so the board understands, they made temporary repairs, but those temporary repairs didn't fix what was going on, and that washout continued. And I drove by there 2 weeks ago going home, and you could have put a Toyota Corolla in the hole that was there. And so the real concern is whether or not it's continuing to erode and encroach upon the actual roadway and not just the right-of-way. Yeah. So I expressed to them our concern, and I would expect that, recognizing that life safety issue, that they'd be fairly responsive as far as time goes.
So we got some type of barrier around that thing?
There is a marker there.
I see the marker, but I'm just talking about
So if you see the marker lately, because when I went by the other day, that was what disappeared. When the hole opened up, the marker went down and I couldn't see the marker. So I called Chris and said, hey, what happened?
I didn't see it when I went through there. That's why I'm asking.
And again, they did reference to me that they were out there, Baker County Road Department was out there last week. So I'm assuming that they've got that hole filled in, and whether or not they put the culvert back into that black pipe that was there, that black pipe honestly was there just so that they could pump the flowable fill down in there in the future. So I'm not really sure, but I can follow up with the road department and find out what the status is. All right, project number 797012, we call it the 23A box culvert. So in red is that number that we're almost certainly going to be reduced to, if not lower. And so if you check your previous document, you can see where that number started and now where that is ended up. We're going to continue to advocate for the county. We do think that there's some additional damages that came from Debbie that aren't necessarily captured. They don't reference the guardrail on there, and there was some damage from that. That's definitely not from the previous storms, but just wanted the board to be aware that that's what that number is starting to look like, and it's going to be closer to that number than what we originally proposed for an estimated cost.
So does somebody have to make up the difference? Like what happens to those two numbers?
So here's FEMA's expectations. If you had damage, you repaired damage. Then another storm comes, right? They're only repairing damage from that storm where there was a declaration. So for FEMA, anything that happened prior to Hurricane Debbie, which was our declaration, is on the county. And then the difference would be what happened from Debbie on. That would be the portion at the 75% federal matching cost that would apply for Debbie.
The 75 plus the 12 for the state, right? 12.5 for the state.
So 75 right now is where the total's at. So from that, 75 is 100% of it. You'd have to pull 25 full percent off, right? And that's what FEMA will give. And then between us and the state would make up that 25%. So 75% times 0.75.
Some of the going back and forth that we've been doing is we have to show where we knew damage based on a prior report that was located, that they identified back in 2022, that we did the repairs on it. So we're arguing some of the repairs, unfortunately, that didn't appear to be done. FEMA's saying that since you didn't do it, you can't then ask for it in the new storm. Okay, so that's where we're sort of splitting hairs on some of these things. And unfortunately, because we don't have some documentation, and it appears some of the repairs were not done back when the last damage was done, that means that it wasn't a hole then.
But did we get money to fix it back then?
No, there was no money. No, we didn't take any money, no, that's a good thing, but no, we didn't.
I'm just trying to figure out where they're coming from.
And what they're saying is we did make some repairs we probably should have. So we were at a decreased level when the damage was done. So when they came out and did the inspection, some of the assumptions were that this last storm did all of it, and they did not. So, and again, we're trying to dig and find more possible information. But that's why we are where we are. So hopefully we can find some more, but again, that's probably a realistic figure.
I mean, 73 on that box culvert ain't gonna do nothing. That's general conditions.
And I think the road department had sent it out after, we believe Hurricane Irma was where the damage started. And you can clearly see like separation in the asphalt on some of the reports, but an estimate was done for what the costs were, and it was significant. So the 73 is, excuse me, basically the difference between that damage then and what damage they see now that they believe is Debbie, and they have pretty good documentation of what the damage was from back in what we believe was 2017. The estimates weren't, and the quotes weren't until like 2022.
Okay.
Turner Cemetery Bridge, where we are with that, we're still responding to requests for information. Again, going back to what Director Blanchard referenced earlier, this kind of circle that we've been suffering through with the questions coming back in multiple times. We are still currently working to determine what the CRC, which is the Consolidated Recovery Center, they haven't given us a number yet. But we're working to make sure that number that they come up with is closer to our number, which we submitted to them in the first place, and that's still in the negotiation process. For Steel Bridge Road, we are still in the process of developing what's called the DDD, or the damage dimensions and descriptions, and basically that's, you have to quantify very specifically what the damage was. And as we all know with Steel Bridge Road, that's 1.5 miles, multiple culverts washed out. I mean, it's very difficult. However, we are in a negotiation to get the CRC to agree, FEMA to agree what our understanding of the damages were, and we took a positive step in that direction. And another thing that Director Blanchard mentioned, they recognized that immediately after replacing or removing our previous PDMG, and immediately I got a response, and we're just continuing that process of still discussing what the damages actually were. On the boat ramp, so that number in red is what the CRC came back with the value to complete the boat ramp project. Everyone on this board will recognize that that figure represents less than half of what we had just spent 4 years ago, 5 years ago to do that work. So again, we have kicked that back. We're having a discussion. I think this is another one of those areas where with the new PDMG in place, it'll be much more beneficial to the county for them to truly understand what our project looks like, how we came to those cost estimates and what the scopes are, and we anticipate seeing that change significantly with the change of our PDMG.
Does that one, are we working with FWC in that one at all? Because I know FWC liked the recommendation of moving the boat ramp.
So here's the process. FWC is still going to be involved at some point at the end to verify the deliverables for the rest of. So it's the kiosk, it's the sign.
And the repair. The
Right.
repair to the existing ramp. I don't, how we get that boat ramp repaired, they don't care about the design of that, but it does have to be done, yes.
They'll basically do the final inspection that they hoped
Correct.
to do before Debbie hit. That's essentially what they've got left. The rest of it is,
We have
the
to
FWC is not involved at all, and not involved in the project at all. It's strictly
Correct.
FEMA and then our
Just from
contract.
informational purposes, we're keeping them involved in that, like sending them the documentation up, but they don't have any oversight of it.
No jurisdiction, no decision-making ability.
Okay. So we're thinking it's $895 to fix it.
That number's going to be really close. I mean,
but they're only going to pay us $252.
no, sir. They're saying that the value of it is only $252. That's why I say
Yeah.
we spent double that, more than double that the last time we did it. So
Right.
we're going back to them and saying, hey, your numbers are askew. Let's sit down and talk about where the numbers are coming from and how you came up with them. And we feel confident that with the PDMG change, they'll start to align with us a lot more.
Okay.
With the next one is Shoals Park. Here again, exact same scenario. The number you see in red compared to what we had on the page one, that's the difference. Again, I'm just kind of driving home for you exactly why the decision that we had to make, that Director Blanchard removed that PDMG and requested to be removed, because these gaps were just too big and they're nonsensical, to be truthfully. We have an engineer and we'll have RFPs hopefully going out tomorrow, and then we won't be working off of estimates anymore. We'll be working off of quotes. And that changes the scope of the process completely. 796315, that's the Cat B County Roads. That's already obligated, and we're not doing anything with it except waiting for the check to come. 801416 is the Cat C County wide roads, Cat C roads countywide. And these are roads that we've got done because of the PDMG. We ended up being told one thing, and then 45 days, 60 days later, they said, oh no, you can't do that, you have to do it this way. And so we're literally started back at square one. Another reason why the PDMG isn't with us. Started back at square one, and we're lining up that project specifically with the way that FEMA wanted it done 3 months into the process. And it was just a hiccup that we just had to deal with. It kind of is what it is. But the good news is, moving forward, we anticipate a much better representation and advocacy for the county moving forward. The last project, 817936, Cat C culverts. These are completed permanent work. So when we had to split, basically any road that had a culvert on it, we had to pull it completely out of all the rest of the roads. And then submit a separate project for those roads with a culvert. And now the projects that we had submitted earlier, minus the 6 culverts, we have to kind of start over again, making sure all the numbers, there's no duplication of benefits and that kind of thing. So that's exactly where we are with 817936, is we're at the beginning stages of developing and building that project. With that being said, and a whole bunch of bad news that was kind of in there, at least not happy news for me, I do want to close out a little bit on some very happy news.
Let me
Yes,
ask
sir.
a question real quick.
Yes, sir.
I've noted 5 different RFPs that you said will hopefully go out tomorrow. Is that the 5 that are going out tomorrow? Okay.
And if it doesn't have an RFP, it's because it's not required. So any of that's the completed work, Those don't require an RFP. Only the projects moving forward require that proposal.
Okay.
So now to the good news. We have begun forming what's called a long-term recovery committee, which is part of our Baker County COAD, the Community Organizations Active During Disaster. I mention this because we were before this board the last time, and we referenced our residents who were in hotels and didn't have places to go back to. And specifically, I remember your comment, we need to help those people, those are our folks. And so I promised the board at that time we were going to bring in an army of folks. We're going to bring in as many folks as we can. And so we did that. We brought in some help, and some of those folks were able to bring funds immediately into this county and help those residents. And I'm not going to cover some numbers because I brought some folks with me here today. I have Colleen Rodriguez with Jewish Families and United Way. She's got a team over there. But with that, I'm going to let her tell you what she did for this county. And I pause for a moment here to say they've been in our hotel room for 4 months. FEMA hasn't been to talk to them, and FDM hasn't been to talk to them. Not picking on anybody. Colleen was there in 1 day, and I'll let her tell you what she did in 1 day. Thank you, ma'am.
I appreciate it. That's all I need to say, right?
He's pretty passionate.
That's it. So good evening. I am Colleen Rodriguez, and I am the CEO of the LJD, Jewish Family and Community Services. And I feel like I needed to give you a little bit of history as to why we're here and why the Sheriff's Office called on us, just so you know what this is all about. So we are an organization that actually was asked to come to Baker County in January to take over your child welfare system. So Partnership for Strong Families handles Baker, Bradford, Union County, Alachua County, further out. And so we are actually the child welfare organization for Baker, Bradford, Union, and Alachua County. So that's why we were here. And then in those conversations about our child welfare work, we wanted to make sure that the Sheriff's Office knew that we were here and what we were about. And so when people called and said, hey, Jewish Families knocking on our door, they knew who we are and what we were about. And so in our conversations with the Sheriff's Office, we talked to them about the fact of why we were asked to come to these counties to provide child welfare. So we have a food pantry. You have a packet on your desk, hopefully. 298,000 meals last year out of our food pantry through the school system and through our regular standalone food pantry. We do millions of dollars of financial assistance. We do mental health. We do school-based programs. And we are the largest child welfare provider in Northeast Florida. And that's why we were asked to come to the VBU Alachua to do child welfare. But then in talking with the Sheriff's Office, they said, you know what, we see that you did storm recovery in Duval County, and you work with the emergency, what we call there is the Emergency Relief Fund. And can you do some of that work here? And I said, well, what do you have? So I don't know if any of you are the numbers people, but I'm gonna talk to you about the numbers that you have in your community. And we can talk to you about what we've done. So what we were told is that the Travel Lodge and the Red Roof Inn was full of people. We were told there were 18 households consisting of 48 individuals, and that was in March. The majority of those households were from Baker County. There were some from Suwannee and Chiefland that relocated here through FEMA, but the majority of them were from Baker, and they wanted to stay in Baker County. So we went to the Travel Lodge. They hadn't been visited in weeks, if not months. We were told that they were going to be evacuated and moved out, and the payment was going to end in a week. So we went out we were told March 4th, we went out March 7th, and the funding was going to end March 10th. And all of those people, and the concern of the Sheriff's Office was that they were going to be homeless on March 10th. When we arrived, there were in fact 16 families residing in the Travel Lodge and 3 in the Red Roof Inn. And it needs to be noted that in the Red Roof Inn, there was a family of a single mother with 9 children, all of them in Baker County schools and daycares. 2 of the families had disabilities, so they were not going to easily be moved. All of them needed food. They had not received food in weeks, if not months. So they were getting what they could through food stamps and for what they could find as walking around the streets. Many of them didn't have transportation, so we provided food for all of them. And then we began to assess the next steps and a plan. Were they going to need deposits? Were they going to need transportation? Were they going to need rent? So it's interesting, I'm not here to bash FEMA. FEMA talks to them about immediate needs, but does not do any forward planning. Where are you going? Where can you go? Do you have family? Do you have the funds to make that move? So those were the conversations that we started to have. Interestingly enough, the next day FEMA arrived and did meet with those those clients after we called them and said that we talked to them and that there was a pretty significant need in Baker County and that the Sheriff's Department was aware and that we were communicating with them. A couple weeks went by and the calls started to arrive again. So last Wednesday on the 9th, JFCS went back out to those hotels to see if the same people were there. The FEMA funding was going to end April 10th, and it did in fact end April 10th for everyone that was still at the Travelodge. There were 14 households and 26 individuals still residing at the Travelodge. I can tell you what happened to them. So 4 of the households, we got there about 10 a.m., they checked out. No one knows where they went. The concern of the Sheriff's Office and JFCS is that they checked out and they're now homeless in your community. We don't have answers. We're trying to find them. The 6 households that were still there, which were 22 individuals and the 2 disabled, a disabled child and a disabled adult, were present and needing assistance. Again, all of them received food, as well as other residents within the hotel, and we developed a housing plan for all of them. We spent the day with them. Of the 6 households that day, we moved 2 of them out to new apartments. We were able to call our contacts, we paid the deposits, we paid the rent, we paid for moving, we even had some items in our cars. 2 of the households we paid to extend their stay at the hotel. The hotel was in agreement. We actually signed a lease with the hotel. Never done that before, but we did it. They want to remain in Baker County. They are looking for employment. They have family here. And so those people are safe for a month, and we'll revisit with them in 2 weeks when they come back to us with their plan. One of the households we did move to Chiefland. I know, don't move out of Baker County, I get it. But the husband had a full-time job in Chiefland, and so we did move them to Chiefland. The family with 9 children is our struggle. All, as I mentioned, all of those children are enrolled in Baker County schools and daycares. So what we did in the short term is we put them with family, and we've assisted those families in taking in these children and the mother. She would like to remain in Baker County, and that conversation, we're still going to have that conversation. We need those children to finish at least the school year here. They're being successful, they're enrolled, they're doing well in school. We don't want to mess that up. The part that's scary to me is that since we left last week, is we have received several phone calls from the Red Cross. Today I got a call from your hospital, Fraser Hospital, the social worker there, and individuals that said, you know what, we got missed. And we have a FEMA number, somehow we got missed, we were here and now we're back here, we're in Baker County, we want to stay in Baker County. We've gotten several calls about, you know what, we weren't impacted by the storm, but we're here in Baker County and we have significant financial assistance need. So today, Fraser Hospital called and said, I've got a single mom, a 4 and a 6-year-old, what can you do for them? So these are all conversations that we're having. So why was JFCS asked to come to Baker County? The reason, yes, we have good outcomes in child welfare and we build good relationships and we find permanency for our children. But the other reason is we are uniquely designed in that we build resources around our families. We're called one-stop shopping in Duval County, right? So it's not that we have mission creep, but if you need your rent paid, we're going to get your rent paid, and then we're going to get you in school, and we're going to meet all of your needs in one spot. What we're hearing about Baker County is that there are phenomenal resources here. I've met them, right? I've gone to your family service center. I've met many of your Hubbard House, all of the resources that you have here. But there isn't that connector that ties them all together. The churches are phenomenal, but they're not always communicating about their food pantry and their financial assistance. And so there's a disconnect and people are falling through the cracks. And the goal is that they don't leave Baker County, that they get their needs met here and we can stabilize them here if we can. And that really is the history of what Jewish Family does, right? Build community around our families and meet their needs where we can. So that we have approached through the United Way and the Red Cross, we're looking for funding for a position that will do all of that. So Dennis talked about the COAD and is it long-term recovery group, and I'll come back in a month and tell you, I'm not sure if it's going to be the COAD group and then we're going to ramp up and be the long-term recovery group. However that works, we're going to flesh all that out. But we need to do 2 things, and we need a person to do it. 1, we really need to do an assessment of what is here, because I think you have a lot here. It feels like we have some gaps, and maybe you do, but what are those gaps truly, and how do we fill them? We have already applied for over $350,000 of mental health dollars for this county and the surrounding, our BBU Alachua, for domestic violence, mental health, substance abuse. There's other dollars that we can bring in. Where are the other gaps? We've already been asked to build a food pantry here, so we will bring a food pantry here, and space has already been donated to us to do that. So we need someone who's coordinating all of that, right? Talking. Let's not duplicate. Let's make sure we're filling true gaps. The other is, what do we do pre-storm? How do we assess pre-storm? These are not great numbers, right? Not your fault, not your community's fault. FEMA moved some of these people here probably without you even knowing they came. And so how do we prepare for a storm? Let's be proactive instead of reactive. What resources are here? What do we need to ramp up? How do we develop a plan? How do we let you know and everyone else who needs to know what that plan is? And then how do we activate that plan as quickly as we can? We plan to walk alongside FEMA and Red Cross and work in partnership with them. Already we've raised money from United Way. The Presbyterian group, recovery groups have already offered us dollars. The Red Cross is offering potentially, hopefully, fingers crossed we'll know tomorrow, to fund this position until June of 2026. And that'll give us a year to really develop and be able to come back to you and say, this is what we've discovered and this is the plan that we have. And we hope to develop that plan with you so that it makes sense for your county. That's kind of the work that we've been doing in the last couple months. So I have a lot more, but that's the gist. So questions?
Any questions or comments?
We appreciate all your work.
Yeah, we don't.
Appreciate all the.
One of the most valuable things about what they're doing is they're not flying in and dropping in and flying out. They're coming to Baker County, they're setting up shop in Baker County, and the plan is to be here for the long haul for our citizens.
Amen.
Our office will be here. We'll have.
We sure
round
appreciate
walls.
it. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
No questions.
We're good.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good
Thank you very much. Okay, move on to our next item on the agenda is Miss Mangano. Magano. I told you I'm just gonna call you Mango. I can do that.
Wow, that's a hard person to follow. That's a lot of work going on. Good evening, Commissioners. I am here for an item that was deferred from last meeting. This is the award of the roof bid that was submitted for a rehabilitation project on Witt-Ruist Road. And that is that roof bid. That was for $27,500.
And as the chairman, I'll go ahead and say I did go out. I did take a look at it. I did pull an overview of the roof, and the price is in line.
And I would just want to add to that, on page 3, you can see at the top right in some red handwriting there, the square footage, that was one of the questions that we asked. That was significantly larger than what we thought
Yeah,
the
a lot.
project was. It does make a lot more sense.
Made a lot more
Yes, sir.
sense. When I got the report and then I went out and looked at it, it's well in line.
Yes, sir.
So at this time, I would request that, or staff recommends that we award the bid for HCA Construction and Roofing for $27,500.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I move we approve the bid for $27,500.
Second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
On the tail end of that, I now need to ask for there to be a waiver to the maximum award limit, because now adding the roof in, we also deferred doing the max award limit waiver.
Okay.
So now this complete project, which is the roof that was awarded this evening and the septic that was awarded on the 1st, that total now comes to $37,931, and the maximum award limit for this particular project based on income is $35,000 even. So we would need to have a waiver for that $2,931.
And what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the waiver of $2,931.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I say aye. Pass unanimously.
Thank y'all so much.
Get busy.
I am.
I'll move to our next item on the agenda, which is Proclamation Water Conservation Month. Mr. Conkey. How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
How are you?
Commission. So again, it's our 27th year doing this. So 27 years ago, the state recognized water conservation will play an important part to the future of our water source. And so every year, obviously the challenge has not gone away. In fact, it's probably growing as the state has grown and we have other challenges. So obviously this plays an important part. This year, obviously with irrigation, as it is in every year, it's in a role that every citizen plays the critical role, because that's where the irrigation systems primarily are being used, and 50% of the water being used at the house is outside the house. So that's why the O&M and owning the system and properly maintaining it, utilizing it properly in accordance with the water management rules and the codes that counties and cities have implemented is very important, so we don't waste water and we use it effectively and efficiently, basically train our yards. So with that, I treat this like a New Year's resolution. For a resolution to be effective, much like water conservation, you need a plan, you need disciplined implementation, and you need achievable metrics if we are to have meaningful sustainability. Because by 2045 in the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan area, we show almost 700 million gallons a day will be drawn out of the aquifer. And water conservation is the cheapest form. I will say, one of the big things that we are doing at the district is recharge. That's one of the big things, is to put more water back into the big pool that's the size of 3 states, several hundred feet below our feet. We're wrapping up our big project, Black Creek Water Resource Project in Clay County, to the tune of $120 million, and it will be online. The next project in the queue, with the pipeline that'll probably go in just to the south of your county, is on a factor of 10 bigger than the Black Creek project in complexity and cost. But that is where we are, is we have to get more water into the aquifer if we expect to meet the needs. So conservation's inexpensive, and we want to keep that nice, protective, inexpensive water before we start to have to use other sources. And if you are watching the news, if you see Clay County has a test potable resource plant online, Project Quench, that's taking reclaimed water and taking it to a drinkable state. JEA is bringing a plant online, which will be a model for the state later in the year, that'll produce 1 MGD of reclaimed water and taking it to that next level of potable reuse. If we don't manage our resources properly, potable reuse is going to be part of our daily vocabulary here in about 10 years. We say that's like, oh, I don't want to do that. Well, what do you think the astronauts do? There's no aquifer up there. Talk to your friends that live out west. Talk to other friends down in the south part of the state who are under water restrictions because of dire water quantity. So conservation plays a key part, and I want to thank you for your commitment, your staff's commitment, and your citizens' commitment to preserving, through diligent support of our measures, protecting our water source. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And what's the pleasure of the board?
Awesome.
Make a motion to accept the proclamation.
Second.
Mr. Conkey.
Proclamation which reads, whereas water is a basic and essential need of every living creature, and whereas the State of Florida Water Management District and Baker County are working together to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation, and whereas Baker County and the State of Florida have designated April, typically a dry month when water demands are most acute, Florida Water Conservation Month, to educate citizens about how they can help save Florida's precious water resources. And whereas Baker County has always encouraged and supported water conservation through various educational programs and special events. And whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can make a difference when it comes to conserving water. And whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can help by saving water and thus promote a healthy economy and community. And whereas efficient irrigation design, programming, and maintenance can conserve water, Baker County will encourage citizens and businesses to evaluate their irrigation systems for potential efficiency enhancements. Now therefore, be it resolved by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the chairman of the Baker County Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the month of April as Water Conservation Month. Baker County, Florida is calling upon each citizen and business to help protect our precious resource by practicing water-saving measures and becoming more aware of the need to save water. For this 27th year of Water Conservation Month, there will be special focus on irrigation system evaluations, passed and duly adopted in regular session on this 15th day of April 2025.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir. We are going to go into a short recess before the public meeting.
We'll scan.
I'll go ahead and call this Baker County Board of County Commissioners meeting back to order. We have a 6 o'clock public hearing, which is what we'll be going into now. Yes.
No
Are
teacher
y'all-
would ever
We're
talk
done
in
now.
class.
Are y'all finished?
We're done.
Okay, we're moving into our public hearing. There's 2 items on the agenda that was removed. Ordinance 2025-06, ordinance 2025-07, rezoning was removed. I don't know if anyone's here for that tonight, but I just wanted to let you know that at the beginning. It'll be heard and at a later date.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll move into our, we have 4 items, and then the rest of the items will be our first hearing. No decisions will be made here tonight on those items 3 through 11 on the first hearing items. Okay?
All right, so I hope you guys enjoy the sound of my voice because you're going to get to hear it a lot this evening. So the first couple of applications we have are for second reading. So you did hear these 2 weeks ago. With one of our meetings in March, following the week of spring break, we had kind of skipped a meeting for public hearing, so that's why you're having second reading and first reading all here at one time. All right, so the first application we have is for ordinance number 2025-03. It is a rezoning for a property owned by Mr. Alan Pippins. The request is from Agriculture 7.5 to Agriculture 5. This parcel is located off of Mud Lake Road, about a mile south of County Road 125. It is a 10-acre parcel with a current land use of Ag B and a current zoning of Ag 7.5. The parcel is currently in compliance with current standards, but the applicant's intention is to build a garage apartment for the family to reside in now, and then in the very near future build a traditional site-built home. With that garage apartment coming first and then the site-built home, we would not look at that as any sort of guest quarters or anything like that that would allow for 2 dwellings on this parcel. So that is why you have the request for that 5-acre zoning, so that they could have 2 single-family dwellings on a 10-acre parcel. So you'll see immediately surrounding the parcel, the land use and zoning is similar of Ag B and Ag 7.5, but immediately across the street, there is some very low-density residential and some RCMH 1. As well as some RCMH 2.5 right there at the intersection of Mud Lake and 125. So with that, we're comfortable that that Ag 5 zoning kind of fits the character of the area in that the sense that it kind of trickles down from those larger tracts to the smaller ones. And again, they are currently in compliance with everything. They're just trying to plan for the future, and they don't want to be in a situation where they're building a site-built home and we say, nope, you can't do that because you already have a garage apartment. So this change would result in very similar lot requirements, the same uses with a minimal change in density. So staff does recommend approval, and LPA recommended approval as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from the board?
Does it access, both of those will access on Mud Lake?
Is what?
Is
So-
both of those gonna come off Mud Lake Road?
Yes,
Come
yes.
on
So
Mud
it's
Lake
gonna
Road?
stay. It's gonna stay one parcel. It's not gonna be separated into 2 parcels. It'll stay one parcel, and both of them will share the access that's
Well, we
already
know
there
that now, but you never know in the
Yes,
future.
yes,
You know,
yes.
when we approve it, it's done. Yeah.
That is true. That is true. No, the
But both of them
the
will
intention
come
now
off.
is to. There's already a driveway.
Oh,
Already
okay.
a driveway there. Mhm.
Thank you.
If you sold the back piece, there would have to be easement north of the back, right?
Yeah, they would have to go through some sort
They
of,
have to trigger,
Right,
some
that-
sort of,
come back to us.
That would come back here.
some sort
Okay,
of
just wanna
process
make
if
sure.
it were to be split. And, yeah, they would have to have an easement developed for that.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments, the board? Any questions or comments from anyone in the community? I'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move we approve 2025-03, read by title.
Second.
Mr. Commander?
Ordinance 2025-3, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, amending the Baker County zoning map by reclassifying approximately 10.01 acres of real property owned by Alan Pippins from agricultural 7.5 to agricultural 5, providing for a change of zoning, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
I have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll close our regular meeting, go back into the public hearing.
Okay, the next application we have is for ordinance number 2025-04, rezoning with the request of agricultural 7.5 to agriculture 5. The property is owned by Ms. Cynthia Rollerson. This is off of Fred Perry Road. It is currently 6.45 acres with a land use of Ag B and a zoning of agriculture 7.5. So the way the parcel lays out now, we would consider it legally non-conforming due to its creation before current standards. You know, those lots that were already non-conforming before that point, we recognize them. The proposed rezoning would bring the parcel into compliance, as well as giving the property owner the flexibility for a family lot in the future. It would be their intent to give an immediate family member a 1 acre family lot. So if you look, everything surrounding this parcel is Ag Zone B and Ag 7.5. But if you look at the size of those parcels that are touching this parcel, the great majority of them are not 7.5 acres. The majority of them either existed prior to current standards or they were created by some sort of family lot. So with that, just like the previous application, the change from Ag 7.5 to Ag 5 would have the same uses, similar lot requirements with a minimal change in density, and would also bring the current parcel into compliance with our standards now. Staff does recommend approval, and LPA recommended approval as well.
Thank you. Any of the commissioners have any questions or comments? Anyone in the public have any questions or comments on ordinance 2025-04? Hearing none, we'll go back into our regular scheduled meeting. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2025, read by title.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Commando?
Ordinance 2025-4, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, amending the Baker County zoning map by reclassifying approximately 6.45 acres of real property owned by Cynthia Rollerson from agricultural 7.5 to agricultural 5, provided for a change of zoning, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll close our regular meeting and back into the public hearing. Ordinance 2025-08.
Okay, this application is for ordinance number 2025-08, a rezoning with a request of agriculture 7.5 to agriculture 5. This parcel is, actually all three of these to begin with have kind of been in the same general area of the county. So this parcel is located off of Mud Lake as well. It's currently 5 acres with land use of Ag B, a zoning of Ag 7.5. So this parcel was created in 2007, and it's currently vacant and would be considered non-conforming. This was property that was separated by family members back in 2007, but this is the first time that it has come before our office to actually be built upon. So the proposed rezoning would bring the parcel into compliance and allow it to be built upon. So if you look at the zoning map here, for the most part, the property immediately touching it is Ag Zone A with Ag 7.5. But just a parcel over, there is some very low density residential and RCMH 2.5, which is pretty standard for this area. I do have here the FEMA flood map. There is a very small corner of this property that does touch the FEMA flood zone, and anytime that happens, we just like you to have that information. So we don't foresee that affecting the buildability of the lot in any way, but we just like you to have that information. So again, very similar uses, similar lot requirements, and a minimal change in density, as well as the intent to bring the parcel into compliance. So staff does recommend approval, and LPA recommended approval as well.
Thank you, ma'am. The board have any questions or comments?
Chairman, I want to abstain from voting on this conflict of interest family.
Yes, sir. Any questions or comments from any of the board?
I mean, we've got it worked out of the egress and the easement and everything.
There
with that one,
is.
too?
There's with a neighboring property owner, they have went through the process to have an easement agreement prepared, and all of that's taken care of, so there's clear access.
Okay.
Okay.
Might as well.
All right. Anyone in the audience had anything on 2025-08? We'll close our public hearing. We're going into our regular scheduled meeting, and what's the pleasure of the board?
I move we approve ordinance 2025-08, read by title.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Commando.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 2025-8, an ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Baker County, Florida, amending the Baker County zoning map by reclassifying approximately 5 acres of real property owned by Briar Patterson from agricultural 7.5 to agricultural 5, providing for a change of zoning, providing direction for recording, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Close our regular meeting, back into the public hearing.
Okay, so the last application that you have here for public hearing is a subdivision replat. It is for a portion of Block 5 of the Collarfield subdivision. The acreage that we're looking at, it's 11.6 acres total, with a current land use of very low density residential and a current zoning of residential conventional 1. There would be no change in land use or zoning. The entire subdivision is zoned that way. I do want to point out that as we discussed last meeting, what you see here on the map has already been split out for taxing purposes. So it is not just this piece. We are discussing all 6 of these pieces here, so just for clarity. The Collarfield subdivision was originally platted in 1992. At that time, Block 5 and Block 4 as well remained whole, and there was just a notation that said Block 5 will be reserved for future use to develop lots of 1 acre or more. So that notation was on Block 4 and Block 5. So the intent of the applicant is to subdivide this portion of the block into 6 residential lots. All of them contain 1 acre or more. They are, for the most part, almost 2 acres. So you see here, everything surrounding this has the same land use and zoning because it's all part of that same subdivision that was originally platted. So here you see that notation that I just mentioned. You see the block is just left whole. And then you see the layout there of all of those lots, 3 of which will have access along Cheyenne Street, which was formerly known as Cub Court, and then the other 3 will have access along Runway Circle. So since that plat was platted in 92, there's been no attempt to subdivide this block until this point. We feel that it meets the parameters that the original owners had set forth. So it would be consistent with the surrounding area. Staff recommends approval, and LPA recommended approval as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Any commissioners have any questions or comments?
I mean, they've all been sold at this point, right?
Not all of them. Some of the lots, if I'm not mistaken, 3 lots have been sold.
Okay.
So yes, some of them have been sold already. During the initial permitting process and just talking with some of the property owners that were permitting some other things, that's kind of how this got brought to light, that a step had been missed in the subdividing of Block 5.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this subdivision replat? We'll go back to our regular scheduled meeting. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move we approve the replat of Block 5 of Collar Field.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. We'll close our regular meeting, go back into our public hearing. And these are all our first hearing items. There will be no decision made by the board tonight on any of these items.
Okay. So there are several of these that are companions. So if it's okay with you guys, the ones that are companions, I will just let you know as we get to them and present them together.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So the first set of applications that we have, it is for ordinance number 2024-09, a small-scale land use amendment with a request of agriculture B to very low-density residential. Ordinance number 2025-10, a rezoning with a request of agriculture 7.5 to residential, conventional, and mobile home 2.5. And then the very last companion would be 2025-11, a rezoning request from agriculture 7.5 to agriculture 5. So this is a 7.5 acre parcel located off of 121 North, just before you get to the caution light there at Steel Bridge. It's before you get to Steel Bridge. So again, the current land use is Ag B, zoning Ag 5. The parcel is currently compliant and contains one site-built home. It's the intention of the property owner to subdivide this parcel and create 2 separate parcels. One that is 2.5 acres and contains the home. The other that is 5 acres and would be vacant, but have the potential to have a site-built home built upon at a later time. So you'll see the land use and zoning maps here. This area, it kind of has a little bit of everything. Immediately touching the parcel, for the most part, is agriculture zone B with Ag 7.5. But there's a little bit of industrial, some commercial, and some very low density residential with some RCMH1 and some RC1 just to the north. So this area is kind of a mixture of a little bit of everything. So again, the parcel is currently compliant with the one house that it has, but it just would be the intent to create those 2 separate parcels. The way those parcels would be laid out, they would both have access onto 121. So an additional driveway would be added onto the 5 acre piece to have immediate access to 121. So with that, staff recommends approval and LPA recommended approval as well. And the property owners are here if you have any sort of questions for them. It would be the intention of the property owners. It is the intent to sell these parcels. So
So sell the existing home, build a home, and then sell it also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And we have three companion ordinances with this?
Yes,
And
so
that's-
the small scale land use and the rezoning with the request of RCMH 2.5, those are for the 2.5 acres that the house
Right.
sits on, and then just the rezoning for the 5 acre the
Okay.
5 acre piece, because it wouldn't require the land use change.
Okay, the way I'm going to handle this one ordinance at a time, because I have to.
Absolutely.
So we're going to start with the 2025-09, which is going to be the ordinance to 2.5 acres to mobile home. Is that correct?
That would be, so 09 would be for the land use change, the
Land
small
use
scale
change,
land use
okay.
change. Yes, sir.
So we're going to deal with the land use change first. Does any of the commissioners have any questions or comments?
I do on this one. The 2.5 acres that the house sits on now, the other 5 acres mostly looks like wetland.
So-
You got the wetland map on it?
None of it fell within the FEMA flood zone.
Okay.
So they had just a regular survey done. There was not any sort of wetland delineation done that I'm aware of. But it did lie without any sort of actual flood zone on it.
Okay.
But we do know that those aren't always the same thing. You
Right.
know.
Any other questions, comments, Commissioner? Any other commissioners?
No, I'm good.
Anyone in the public have any questions or comments on ordinance 2025-09? Okay, we'll move to our next ordinance, which is going to be the rezoning 2025-10. Any questions or comments from any of the board on those? Hearing none, anyone in the public have any questions or comments on 2025-010 or -010-10? We'll move to our next one, which was ordinance 2025-11 and rezoning. Any commissioners have any questions or comments on ordinance 2025-11? Hearing none, anyone in the public have any questions, comments on ordinance 2025-11? Okay. Let's move forward.
All right, so the next application we have, there are 2 companion applications for ordinance number 2025-15 for a small-scale land use amendment and ordinance number 2025-16, a rezoning. The request is from agricultural B to medium-density residential and from agricultural 7.5 to residential conventional and mobile home 0.5. So this parcel is located off of Clarence Bennett Road, which comes off of 125 North. Just before you pass the Dollar General and Altman's, but it's right before you get to the park. The Clarence Bennett comes off to your left there, just to kind of give you an idea of where it is. It's the total acreage is 0.77 of an acre, with a land use of Ag B and a zoning of Ag 7.5. So obviously, the way the parcel is now, it is not in compliance. The parcel was created in 2015, and it is vacant as of right now. Prior to 2015, this parcel was part of a larger tract. However, this portion was separated from the right-of-way, or it was separated by the right-of-way. So if you look here, this is your parcel, and then this piece, it used to be all together as one parcel. When it was together with the larger tract, this section that lies on this side of the road was used as a temporary family lot for an immediate family member. So it does have a well and septic on it already. But Since then, in the 90s, it was used as that temporary family lot. The mobile home was removed, and then it was sold from brother to brother. So with the way it is non-conforming now, we would have to go through some sort of process to make it conforming, and with the zoning, this is what we came up with. So if you look, everything around it does have the land use of Ag B and the zoning of Ag 7.5, which the great majority of this area does. You'll see on the survey there, this is when it was surveyed out back when it was purchased. You'll see the well and septic there on the survey. There is a little portion of a pond as well. And so then you see the area that's left around on that side of Clarence Bennett Road. So with this application, and considering the previous use of the property and this portion of the property being divided by the road, that is why you see a staff recommendation of approval. I feel like if the circumstances were a little different and we had not had this portion of property with previously being used, and if it wasn't divided by the road, we may have approached it a little differently. So staff recommends approval. LPA heard this last Thursday. They did recommend denial with a 3-to-1 vote. So the property owner is here if you have questions for him. He has been the property owner since 2015 when it was separated, and it is his intention to build on it if approved.
Okay. Any questions or comments from anyone on the board?
And just for public information, during the LPA meeting, this did kind of bring up a conversation in regards to spot zoning and what meets the parameters of spot zoning, and are there situations that we could potentially look at some sort of exception or variance to maybe remedy some of these parcels without, having to go through a rezoning and creating any sort of spot zoning question. So myself and Mr. Greg Shepard, who is the LPA chairman, that's kind of one of the things on our list now, is to do some research and see, how are other places handling situations that are like this? Are they going through any sort of are they going through the standard process? Is there a different process? Do they have is there a criteria to what would really be defined as spot zoning? And if so, what, if any, exceptions would be made?
Yeah, I'm glad we're looking into that, because I see a bunch of them are non-conforming that have came before
Right.
the board. I mean, that's the vast majority that I've seen so far. So, I mean,
I've seen it for 15 years. So.
Right. And and a lot of times we can find, a middle ground with some other neighboring properties, so there wouldn't be the say heartburn of a spot zoning. But in some situations, if no one else in the area has went through any sort of process, on paper it does look like spot zoning, whether that be the case or not. So that is some conversations that were sparked, and myself and Mr. Shepard actually had a conversation about it yesterday and doing a little more research.
Well, what gives me heartburn about it, this is a half-acre lot, and years ago it was permitted for them to put a well, a septic tank, and a house on it. And now it's coming back before this board for us to tell them that they can't do what they've already been permitted to do.
Right.
Exactly.
I don't see that as spot zoning. I look at it as maybe doing the right thing.
And that was
And that's why I
the
got elected.
basis for my recommendation is, it doesn't
Staff
fit the
recommendation,
other.
I understand. I can understand the LPA side, and I can understand But now they're bringing it before this board to make a decision on putting a house where a house used to be. That was already approved, already permitted before, and now we're telling the homeowner that he can't do it. That gives me heartburn.
Yep.
And if it had been prior, would have said, no, we ain't not going to allow the half-acre lot, then that makes a little difference for me.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of hard for me to tell a man that bought a piece of property that had a place on it, that now he can't put nothing on there. It just gives me heartburn.
I do want to ask the question and bring this up. I mean, there with it just saying impact fees from the school and such. You know what I mean? Those have already been paid for this parcel. So putting a new home on there, does that spark that?
If there was an existing
does,
home.
because in this case, it would, simply because on temporary family lots, which is
Right.
what this was, an impact fee is not paid
Right.
when that temporary family lot is given. If this was a traditional family lot where the acreage would have been separated when the family lot was given,
Right.
then an impact fee would have been paid. So in this case, an impact fee was not paid back then, so when they go to build,
It will be
they
paid.
would be subject to that impact fee.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from any of the board members?
I'm good.
Anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this item, ordinance 2025-15? Go to our next one, which is 2025-16, which is the rezoning, same parcel. Any of the board have any questions or comments? Anyone in the public have any comments? Okay, move on.
Okay, the next three are companion applications as well. So this is for ordinance number 2025-12, a small-scale land use amendment. You have to overlook me, my screen died, so if you see me turning my head repeatedly, that's why. So it is for ordinance number 2025-12 for a small-scale land use amendment with the request of Agriculture B to very low-density residential. Ordinance number 2025-13, a rezoning from Agriculture 7.5 to Residential Conventional 1. And the second companion rezoning is for ordinance number 2025-14, a rezoning with the request of Agriculture 7.5 to Agriculture 5. So this property is owned by the NAB, it's part of the NAB lands. We are looking at the portion that is east of Crepe Myrtle, over to Raintree, and then what is south of Hickory. So the current parcel is all of this as well as this down here. The acreage that we are looking at for the changes, it is 87.84 acres of the 368.22 acres. The reason for that is because this acreage down here, there is no request for a land use and zoning change. The proposal from the applicant would meet the land use and zoning of this portion. The right here along Crepe Myrtle, the small-scale land use amendment and the rezoning for the 1 acre tracts would be along this strip here, and then the portion behind it would be for the 5 acre request of rezoning. So the applicant proposes to develop 17 single-family lots, like I said, along Crepe Myrtle. I'm just gonna say, yeah. Would be to develop 17 single-family lots consisting of 1 acre along the eastern side of Crepe Myrtle, and then 10 single-family lots consisting of 5 acres or more along Hickory and Raintree. So you'll see that Crepe Myrtle is literally the dividing line for the land use and zoning changes. The lots that are developed along here, along Raintree, those were the NAB family tracts. So since they were considered family lots when those were created, they were not required to go through the land use and zoning change. And you'll see here, this is the FEMA flood map. So this section here is what lies within the flood zone. So here you see the proposed layout for that section. So you'll see here are the 1 acre tracts, and then these are 5 acres here, these are 5 acres, and then these are larger tracts there. So again, the intention would be to go through the subdivision process next. That is just a general layout of what we would be looking like, or what it would be looking like, and then additionally you would see the portion that is south of Hickory as well in larger tracts. So, excuse me. Staff does recommend approval of the land use and zoning change, especially with the consideration that there are 1 acre tracts directly across the street from the strip that would be developed into 1 acre lots. However, we just want to put it out there for the property owner that there were some DRC comments, and those should be taken into account prior to any sort of subdivision submittal. So, you know, we all know you can't put conditions on the rezoning and land use change, but we can make them aware of the steps in the process for the subdivision application. Some of those comments were in relation to the ingress and egress, the access of the roads. I can tell you just from being out there, as of right now, Hickory is not in good shape. It would definitely need some attention, and just from talking with the agent for the property owners, they're understanding of our concern. One of the other requirements would be some permit clarity from the Water Management District. There are several permits from many years. We would just want some sort of clarity as to what has been closed, what is still open, what has the Water Management District clearly approved, and what is still in question. And then, in addition to that, any of the WUI requirements that may come into discussion with fire rescue. So staff recommends approval just with those comments noted, and LPA mirrored those same comments but with approval.
Okay.
And I know the applicant is here, and he did have some photos that he asked me to add to the slide to show for some of the road questions. So whenever you would like him for that.
Let's go ahead and move forward with that.
Okay. Mr. Knapp, if you would like to talk about you.
So the pictures that you see here, the two on the left is the same road from the same spot, just a slightly different camera angle, but that is the private road, Hickory Street, that goes back to the, it pretty much comes out to about the second or third of the last of the homes on Raintree Drive where the original family lots were created. The road's in terrible condition. We certainly wouldn't expect to be trying to build or sell lots on that road. But the picture on the right is the homeowner association maintained road that we just built in Southern Estates over there behind the new elementary school. And I just wanted to give you a picture of what Hickory Street's going to look like, you know, if we can move this forward and get it passed. We are going to do a homeowner association just like we did in Southern Estates to maintain that road. And so that at least hopefully I addressed the Hickory Street portion of the project. I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to be here. Most of you know me. Those of you that may not be familiar with me, my family's been in this county for a long time. My great-grandfather, William Knabb, back in the 1950s and 1960s, was able to acquire substantial land holdings in this county. In 1974, the land holding entity created a new entity called Knabb Lands, and that was supposed to be the development side of the family land business. So in 1974, Knabb Lands was created. Labuna Farms, which was the land holding entity, deeded one section of land, it's about 640 acres, to Knabb Lands in this location for the purpose of development. About 45% of that 640 acres has been developed in, I think, at least 3 phases over the last 51 years. Back in the 1970s, this little area of McClenny was kind of state of the art. We had paved streets. They put in a central water system that now the city of McClenny owns and operates. 1 acre lots. So the family still has about 350 acres that's never been developed out of that section of land. We've been approached multiple times by different developers who's come in and been talking about 1/4 acre lots, 1/2 acre lots, and it just didn't quite fit the appetite of what the original intention was for that area. So in trying to not be in the land owning business anymore and trying to find a way to get rid of the land, develop the land in a responsible way that didn't create a lot of unnecessary impacts, we felt like the 17 lots on Crepe Myrtle that are 1 acre is a nice transition. Go right across the street are also 1 acre lots. Everything behind that, we're proposing a 14 acre lot, 2 10 acre lots, and the remainder would be 5 acre lots. We felt like that was a good way to get rid of the land and not create too much traffic impacts and so forth. Now, there's also a part that's south of the plat, the preliminary plat that you saw, which was just the 85 acres. There's another 126 acres that's already zoned Ag 10, 1 home per 10 acres. And the reason you're not seeing that is we're not asking for a zoning change on that, because we're not going to propose any home sites less than 10 acres there. On that 126 acres, we're looking at 7 to 8 lots max, depending on how some of the wetland delineations come out. There's 26 acres of that that's on the other side of Turkey Creek. There's no way to even get to it unless you come around 228. So that 26 acres is going to go under conservation. There's another 40 or 50 acre wetland that's going to be on the, I guess it'd be the south side of Hickory, where the 10 acre lots are going to be. So you're going to be looking at some 20 or 27 acre lots that's going to encompass those wetlands, and those will be placed under conservation easements as well. So there will be no development activity in there as well. Trying to be responsible, trying to come up with a way that makes sense. So there's a total of 226 acres. I misspoke. The bottom piece was 146 acres, plus the 86 or 87 acres. It's about 225 acres. We're proposing about 34 home sites. If you average that out, it's about 6.4 acres per home site. I think it would be a great addition to the county. From what we've seen, the folks that are spending the money to buy these 5 acre lots, mini ranches, these lots aren't cheap. Some people have complained that they're being priced out of the housing market, and I feel bad, and I hope things change for some folks. But this is going to be a nice a nice expansion for the county, the right kind of people that we want here. And with that said, does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions?
I got one.
I'm scared.
Just to clarify, I see City of McClenny's got the little square right there with the water. Will these lots be required to hook up to that?
So, as of right now, we're moving this forward without any commitments from the City of McClenny to provide water. So we're moving forward with the assumption that we're going to be well and septic tank.
Okay.
However, depending on how long this process goes through the county, we're hoping that the city will have a change of heart and will commit us some water. The water lines are already on the same side of the road of Crepe Myrtle where the homes are going to be. Makes a lot of sense to tie into that water system. However, the City of McClenny has some other issues that they're dealing with that they can't make that commitment right now.
Would that just be for the ones on Crepe Myrtle, or would you try to service the whole?
So,
entire-
no. So the large lots, the 5 acres or larger, pretty much 100% going to be well and septic tank.
Is that what the family lots are? Or are they?
Yeah.
They're all
Well, actually, not all of the family lots have the water line run down. I'm not sure where it stops, but I know my dad's house is the 3rd or 4th house in, and he's on the water system. And it goes down probably 2/3 of the way, but I know the last 5 or 6 houses down there are on well.
On well, so
yeah.
Anything else?
Okay.
Any other commissioners have any questions? Just for clarification, you did say this was going to be an HOA?
On the lots that take access to the private, the gravel road would be HOA. The lots,
Anything unpaved is going to be under an HOA.
right, and
is
if it's
basically
on
what
a
you're-
county-maintained paved road like Crepe Myrtle, they will be excluded from the HOA. The sole purpose of the HOA will be an entity to maintain that road.
And the, not conditions, but the recommendations put forth by the LPA is taken into consideration
Absolutely.
by the, okay.
So, and one more thing before I sit down, I know there'll probably be some public comment. There's some legitimate concerns in that area. Phase 1, which was done in 1974, it is at the lower end of the property. There are some drainage issues. We understand that. This property here is some of the highest elevation property. There's about a 5 or 6 foot elevation change from where Crepe Myrtle and Rain Tree come together, going back towards phase 1, it starts dropping back down. In what we're doing now, there's still going to be 120 acres that's not developed, and that's the part that's right across from phase 1. So there's some opportunity there if and when that gets developed, whether it's me or somebody else, there'll be a water planning, stormwater discharge planning that'll take place there that hopefully can alleviate some of the problems that's occurring a little further down. There's concerns about traffic. I get it. You're talking about 34, 35 new families coming in. So that's what you got to ask yourself. Is this going to be enough to be an impact that's insurmountable? Or is 35 homes on 225 acres? Is that a reasonable amount? We got the new Journey store coming across the street. It's going to be interesting. We got the state hospital down the road and a new elementary school. So at certain times of the day when it's shift change at the state hospital, hey, my parents have lived out there for a long time. It's hard to get out of that subdivision at times, but we're looking for solutions to some of those problems, and we're open to any suggestions.
I've got one more thing, and it just may be a comment, but at what point does the county require a second entrance? You know what I mean? Because we got Tom Norman Road and I guess a State Street. Is that the two egress?
Yes.
Out. You know what I mean?
Tom Norman is a county maintained dirt road.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly passable most of the time.
Yeah.
It's probably going to have to come up when that 120 acres gets ready to be something done with it. It's probably going to have a real conversation about getting that thing paved and who's going to pay for it and all of that.
Right. I just wanted to make the comment. I mean, just that's a lot of homes with one entrance. One paved entrance right now. You know what I mean?
So normally when it would come before you on a site development issue, that's when you look at traffic studies and things like that to determine if there's a better flow.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Okay. We're going to open it up for public comment now. Hello. If you would say your name and your address.
Ann Reisman, and I live at 4198 Raintree Drive. I live pretty much on the corner of Crepe Myrtle and Raintree on the paved portion. And I first want to say thank you for allowing me the time to speak. I spoke last week at the land planning. I spoke 5 years ago when this issue was brought up as well, because my main concern is the infrastructure. We built our home in 2003, and there have been never any improvements to any of the roads. They come and they fill the potholes with tar, and that's it. I mean, I'm fortunate. I live on one of the better streets, but the rest of the neighborhood, the streets are, even the paved roads, the conditions are horrible. I mean, we pay property taxes, and nobody's ever improved the roads there. I also have concerns about the one entrance and one exit. If there's a fire at the Travel Lodge and it expands quickly, say like the Paradise Valley fire in California or the 1998 fires here in Northeast Florida, if it expanded quickly, we're not getting out of that neighborhood, not from Tom Wilkerson, and we're not getting out of States. We're basically stuck. That's 275 households, and I actually think I'm shortchanging it a bit, but that's a lot of people that won't be able to get out. I proposed 5 years ago, an exit in a different direction, maybe even further out, 121, but considering 2 exits right in a row, if we were to exit out Tom Wilkerson, all you can do is make a right. There's nobody that's ever going to allow us to get a left, because it's right by the traffic light. I mean, that's all I'm considering is, again, I asked last week, I never got any responses. I mean, it was shut down 5 years ago for a lot of reasons, drainage issues, traffic issues, but now it seems to be moving forward. And instead of 84 acres like it was 5 years ago, or 31 acres 5 years ago, it's now 84 acres. You used to live in the neighborhood.
I live right there. I love that neighborhood.
And I love that neighborhood too. And my
we
daughter
did
now lives on that
and
neighborhood.
we did get a State Street paved.
Yeah.
So there is a street in the neighborhood that did get paved.
Yeah.
So, but all of them need, we have that throughout the whole county.
Yeah.
We really do. We have the same issue. And that's one of the reasons we're looking at other options of raising money. That's another discussion for another day. So.
Well, how many
But
other
I understand your
neighborhoods?
concern.
How many other neighborhoods have that many houses with one exit?
I would not know without looking.
Probably Turkey Creek by George Hodges
Yeah.
Road. That only has
There's
one
quite a
exit.
few, but I don't know exactly how many, but there's quite a few. And in other counties, there's a lot more.
And getting out by Zaxby's is about as bad as getting out anywhere.
Oh, I do have some pictures. So, because one of my other big concerns is the drainage. The property off Crepe Myrtle does sit up higher than where we are. This is currently flooding along Crepe Myrtle, and so where is it going to go? It's going to drain off into our properties. I mean, that's a significant amount of water there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments? Public comments? Yes, sir.
My name is Robert Griffiths, and
Could you state your address, please, for the record?
4132 Birch Street.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And we lived out there, and we love it too, by the way. It's a wonderful place to live. But the drainage, where Don Gaines built our house, and he shot it, and it was the highest, he said it's the highest spot. It is high, but the drainage is terrible. And so he built our house, fortunately, very high up, but it's almost flooded several times. But our next door neighbor, that house, many families have lived in that house because it floods. I mean bad. It will flood. And I'm just worried that if you look at it's Crepe Myrtle, the ones that they're going to build at, that's almost, if you look at it, that's almost underwater a lot. Have you ever noticed that? It's underwater a lot. And I'm no expert, but if you fill it in, that water's got to go somewhere. And I'm just afraid it's going to we'll have even more flooding problems. And we've had that flooding problem for a long time. And I don't know if anybody's ever taken it seriously or not, but that house next to us is flooded over and over again. And different families will move in, and we warn them, but they don't believe us. So they go in and they move out again.
Yeah, I understand.
But there's lots of problems, and I think they've all been covered, but the drainage is huge, I think.
I would agree with the drainage issues.
Is there any culverts going under Crepe Myrtle? Do we know?
I don't think so. Not that I can remember. I've been out there when you had to drive through with my four-wheel drive. I lived in the neighborhood, so I know.
Where it came over Crepe Myrtle?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't never remember coming over Crepe. But when I was there, we didn't get that one bad flood we had. I went out there. I wasn't living there then. It was terrible everywhere out there. There were some houses I never would have thought would have had water in their yards. Had water in their yards. I was out there with a shovel digging, cleaning culverts out so the water would pass under some of the roads. That's back toward Burt Street. On
Double check before the second hearing.
I can't remember what side of the road it is, but anyway, I was out there digging.
Because the water here should stay.
It was just full of junk. I dug it all out and all the water shot across the road.
The reason I asked, I mean, if the water's on that 84-acre parcel, it shouldn't cross Crepe Myrtle unless there's some culverts on it. I mean,
Well, the thing is, they're going to have to go through water management issues and all that. They can't push their water off on somebody else.
Right. So, with that,
yes.
Yeah,
if you're finished.
I'm just speaking out loud, but I mean that's.
So it is a legitimate concern. So, 1974, fast forward to 2025. To get these permits, we had to do elevation studies. So, without culverts being under Crepe Myrtle, the water would have to be higher than Crepe Myrtle to go over. But the thing about that is that property falls back toward the creek. So all that water naturally is going to migrate down away from Crepe Myrtle.
That's right.
Turkey Creek is the drainage system for that property.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the Water Management District will tell us, based on those elevations, how we're going to handle that stormwater.
And we're living in a little different world now with St. John's Water Management than we was back when that development was done.
I'm asking all the questions. I'm sorry.
Let me point out something.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Right here. Can't really tell what it is, but obviously it's man-made. That is a ditch that was dug probably sometime after phase 1 when they had the first big rainfalls, and they said, whoa, something's not working. And that ditch is designed to carry a lot of water out of phase 1 right here.
Yep.
And it goes straight back to the creek. So, at some point, this is the 120 acres that's not a part of our conversation today, but at some point, that conversation is going to have to come up when something happens to this, that ditch gets redug. It's got a lot of trash, a lot of trees growing in it now. It's not functioning.
I don't think it's an easement given to the county, though. It's just it's a ditch made by the developer.
By somebody trying to get some water out of their yard.
Yeah.
But I think all the concerns pretty much can be addressed with what we're trying to do.
One more concern I'm looking at, if like we're saying, if all the water flows, I guess east, right, to Turkey Creek.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me of the Betchel property that we have right now in Miltondale. where, you know, all that water is being kind of pushed to one area and it's kind of flooding that house out. Is there any easements, or could we look at maybe an easement on the family tracks along Raintree? Because if we kind of send that water that away, well, it's got to get to the creek somehow.
Well, I mean, the prime opportunity is the existing ditch that's there.
To get it below Hickory then.
Oh, to get it below Hickory?
Well, I'm saying the 84 acre piece is what we're talking about right now.
True, okay.
So all of that along Crepe Myrtle, that water's going east. So if it's going that way, that's where I kind of reference back to the Miltondale issue. It's all going naturally to that one area at the Betchel house, and we're having issues with it right now. So I don't want the same thing to happen to Raintree, where all the water's kind of pushed back there, and then one of these along the family parcels be the victim of, you know, kind of all of the build up here. You know what I mean?
We can address that.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
voicing my concerns and just something we would like to address.
Because believe it or not, when it rains, that water travels the same path every time. We know right where that water crosses over the
On
family
Raintree.
lots. So we can have a conversation with those folks to
Sure.
see if they'd be willing to give up 15 feet and make a better.
Right.
You know, it wouldn't be treated water because it's going to run straight in. But
That's right.
But it's running
But I
straight
mean,
in
if you
now.
funnel it there and everything else through
Yeah.
ditches and then get an easement through there, then we can maintain it and hopefully alleviate or eliminate the problem kind of that we're seeing somewhere else right now.
Point taken.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to put the existing water and dam it up so it's not going to, because that is going to create a problem.
Right.
We can't make a dam
Yeah.
of no sort.
That's what I'm saying. Naturally, it's going to go east.
It's
So
going to go-
where's it going, and then how can we
And if we can
address that issue
if we
now?
can control it, it's usually, water's better controlled than uncontrolled. So if we
Sure.
can control it, we can manage it. But if you can't control it, it's going to be in somebody else's property.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Chief?
I want to address the board concerning where we were at 5 years ago when we talked about this project before, when Ms. Laura Dietrich was the
Yeah.
planning director. We expressed a severe concern with not having a secondary exit for the property. And since then, like the lady said earlier, we've had the Paradise Village fire in California and other places where people were not able to escape. My big concern is we at the time talked about the possibility of paving Tom Norman Road, and it was turned down, I believe, through Laura's research through DOT because they would not allow another road to come in right there at the interstate interchange.
That's correct.
So there was actually a proposal to look at another place further south off of one of the other roads that cut through there. I think it was talked about maybe coming out somewhere by where they build the food truck, that little plant there. And that was that was just a suggestion. It was nothing that was brought before the board as far as an official recommendation, but that got some public concern with that because there was an existing property in place and everything. But the talk was there about the secondary egress. Florida Fire Prevention Code 1, which is, we're in the 8th edition of the Florida Fire Prevention Code now, says if the AHJ, which is Baker County Fire Rescue, we're the authority having jurisdiction for that area, determines that a single fire department access road can be impaired through traffic, terrain challenges, climate conditions, or anything else, then multiple access roads might be required. And at this point, I would pass it to you as the board to have the developer, before they move forward any more with the development, to have a traffic study performed, and that it determine that is that road adequate for the amount of homes that are currently there, or do we need a secondary egress? And then I think at that point it becomes the developer's onus on him to find a secondary egress for the development. I would like to say also that in my notes for the staff report, that because the family lots all on Raintree never came before the board for approval as a subdivision. Current condition of that road that I have been down concerns me to being able to rapidly access properties at the very end due to some of the road conditions. The road is, I don't believe there's an HOA that maintains that road. I would have to ask Mr. Georgie about that. So there's no maintenance agreement there. And right at 5 years ago, we had a fire at the end of Pine Avenue and Oak Street. You can see it on the map there. There's some homes that abut there, and we had a home there, about the third or fourth home on the Oak Street on the left, that was burning some wood in the back. It escaped, and our brush truck was delayed getting there because of the road conditions, because the roads are very bad in that area. Because again, when that was first developed in the 70s, there was no HOA. There was no maintenance for that area of the road. It's not a county road, so it's not maintained. And I think that we're going to have the same issue along Raintree with the lots that are being proposed that are going to abut Raintree. So I think there needs to be some consideration that some type of maintenance plan needs to come in place for Raintree Drive if we're going to allow new lots to come on that road. Because currently we were not able to make any comments about the development that's there. So that's my concerns as the fire chief as far as the road conditions. The water, as far as the hydrants and stuff, I would, if we've got the water system there in place and there's water access, so there wouldn't be any additional requirements for that because it's already got a water system with hydrants for us to access. So.
Would that be us to put hydrants up, or would that be the city?
I don't think with the scale of this and with the hydrants that are there on Crepe Myrtle already, there's already hydrants along that line. I don't think that the density would make it at that point to where they're close enough and we have a system already in place.
All right.
So,
okay. To address one of those real quick on Raintree, quick question. I know you mentioned there would be a HOA, and that the same as you did at the other place. Would that encompass the Raintree Drive residents or not?
No, that's
it would just be for that.
Just where we're going to be creating new lots that will be serviced. So if our development
George, if you would come back up, so we.
Sorry to make it keep
could be
going
recorded.
back and forth.
Okay.
That's what this meeting's for.
On our development plans, if we create a new lot, we're going to have a new road that'll be just like we did at Southern Estates, and that lot will be under the HOA. So it'll come all the way down Hickory.
Yes, sir.
It'll tie into the existing Raintree and drop down somewhere around that last house, which was one of my cousin's homes, and that's where we'll have a cul-de-sac there, and we'll do some 10-acre lots there. That'll all be gravel road, HOA maintained.
Mm-hmm.
We're also proposing come down Hickory and go back north on Raintree, two lots only. Those will also be new road improvements, HOA. But from there all the way back out, all the family lots, right now we're not proposing that. Those folks need to come together and come up with a plan because that road's not in good shape.
Right. So what? Could we flip back by chance to the where it was
Site
split
plan?
up? Yeah, the site plan. So there we go. So those 5 along Hickory will all be the new HOA,
new
and then the
road,
2 there.
and the 2
now
coming up.
that bigger parcel will not be.
Right. And that bigger parcel, the 14 acres, that's the one I'm keeping.
Yep.
And the 10 acre, but
Those three would not be included, is that correct?
right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Those 2 lots are going to be, one's going to be mine, one's going to be my cousin's.
Okay. So those 3 parcels.
Wouldn't be included in the HOA.
And the 1 acre lots
And the
also
1
would be
acre lots.
excluded.
Right. Okay.
Just
Yeah, I was just more concerned about the large one not being included, but I understand what he's doing now. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Mr. George,
Yes,
while you're standing up there before you sit down, the chief had recommended doing a traffic study. Would you expound on that?
I haven't done a traffic study. We can do a traffic study. We got to ask ourselves: is a traffic study for 34 homes? Is it gonna make a difference? If y'all want a traffic study, I'll get one done.
Well, generally, you can get a traffic engineer that'll look at the proposed development too. It's not just a traffic study of what's kind of there. It looks at the whole area, like they'll put a radius out.
Well, this is the question. This is the problem I have as a board member. When we have a fire chief, and the fire chief says he read whatever he read a while ago. If he hadn't read that and I would have just heard his words, I would have said, well, let's talk. He read fire code, fire marshal code, and so he is telling us that it could be a problem, and we don't know that unless we have it. And I want everyone sitting in this audience that lives in that community to know that we've done our due diligence to prove that there's not going to be a problem. It's not going to guarantee there's not going to be a problem, because everybody's not perfect, and these studies and all are not perfect neither. So I don't want you to think, but I don't want is just to say we have a fire chief that's saying this is what we probably need to do, and it's just say, well, we don't want to do that. Everything costs money, I know that, but the problem is I want to make sure that the residents out there are protected.
Well,
and if that's going to be part of what we have to do to make sure they're protected, then we need to look at it.
Let's do this. If y'all like the plan, when we meet next month, if y'all approve it, put that as one of the stipulations, that a traffic study's done and that we're meeting all the requirements for the traffic.
Well, that was going to be one of the stipulations. I was just trying to get your feedback into it.
Well, I hate spending money if I don't have to,
Well,
just like anybody.
I'm a builder too, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
If we need to do it, we'll do it.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you wouldn't object to it, because that's a valid point.
I'm just glad he's not making me put a dry hydrant in out there.
He might. You better go sit down.
It's not done yet.
Oh, they don't cost that much.
Gave him an idea,
He did a
man.
great job on the Southern
He
States
did.
Nursery, and to put in a dry hydrant as required because of how far it was from any water sources, and he did a great job with that development. And I do want to commend him for that,
Yeah.
and the road was made improved to where we could get our trucks down there, and there's an HOA to maintain that, and that's my main concerns.
And that's what it's all about. You've already proven yourself that you're going to do what's right. You have a track record with development you've already done, so we know that. But this is a little different situation with the traffic study and making sure that our fire trucks or our EMS can get to anybody in there that needs it when they need it. And I don't know how in the world we're going to address the situation with a private road, because that is beyond our jurisdiction as a county to go out there and tell a private citizen what they're going to do with their road. Now, if they was to build more houses in there, then we could address it. But just to go out there and say, hey, you got to improve this road, we can recommend that they do it.
But there are some small counties that have had to go into those areas, and they've had to notify them that if you don't fix the roads, then help's not coming.
It's hard for me to do that.
No, but that's unfortunately, you have to let people know that we need your help kind of bringing it up.
And maybe we can do that through building and zoning. Write a letter, we having issues with getting our fire equipment and all in there. We would appreciate you fixing your road. But that's another story we need to deal with.
Well, I tell you what, I can't make a commitment because I'm going to be speaking for other people, which I can't do. But I will approach each and every one of those lot owners and what were the family lot provisions and give them the opportunity to be in the HO if they want to contribute, and we may can do the whole system.
Yeah.
But I can't promise that, but I can promise that I'll reach out to them.
Well, that would benefit them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may be something that we can do.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Chairman, I've got a couple
Yes.
questions. I think for LaDonna maybe. Do you know how many trips this would trigger? Have you? Or how many home? I know there's a.
There's a calculation based on
there
the
is.
National Transportation Manual that I'm sure Commissioner
Yeah,
Bennett
there
is familiar
is,
with.
and I don't know that number off the top of my head. But I will say that we've had some applications in the past where we've reached out to some consultants that we already work with on a regular basis, and we can kind of give them a copy of the layout, and they can look
It's
at
all
it and tell us
computerized.
if they feel that one would be one.
I just have
feel like
concern
if a
about
traffic
one
study would be
one
necessary.
way in and one way out.
Right,
That's
right. So that's something we can do. We can go ahead and I can talk to Mr. Nab, and we can
Okay.
go ahead and put that information out there and get their opinion. And if they do say that they feel a traffic study is necessary, then we could go from there.
I see him raise his hand. I don't know if he has something to say.
Can we see what that traffic study looks like after that journey is completed?
Could you? I can't hear you. I'm bad of hearing for one reason.
Can we see what that traffic study looks like after the journeys is put in? Because you can't turn left, and there's nothing there right now. They tore the old gas station down. I imagine it's going to get crazy trying to make a left turn coming out of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
My name's Kellen Hatcher.
Kellen Hatcher. What's your address, sir?
4291 Raintree Drive.
Thank you, bud.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just before we proceed, if anyone did have spoke tonight for public hearing, if you guys could just fill out a speaker card for us and make sure we get it for the official record, I would appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you.
If you can get Kayla to hand them out.
Yes, sir, certainly.
And with that, I think that's gonna kind of depend, when that traffic study is done, and we have our information, but we don't necessarily have, the journey's information to be able to.
But the people who does the calculations, they'll know about the gas.
That's true, yeah.
They will calculate that in. Because they have to. They can't just say, oh, it's not there, we're not going to calculate it. They know it's coming.
I mean, at this
so
point,
it
they're
has
close
to be in
enough
there.
they have started constructing, so.
It doesn't matter. If they know it's going to be there, it has to be
Right.
considered in their traffic study.
Right.
In their calculation. Any other questions, comments, or anything from anyone in the public? None? That went pretty smooth. I'm pleased. Any other comments, questions for anyone on the board? This will be back before the board in 2 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Oh, yes, the first meeting in May.
Okay, so.
That's May 6th.
Yes.
Okay.
And maybe in the meantime, maybe we can at least have some sort of direction, whether they feel the traffic study would be required or not, so maybe.
Who's going to give you direction on whether, I heard you talking about it, but who you say is going to give you direction where it's required or not?
So in the past, we have reached out to Pittman.
The county has a contract with
Yeah,
Pittman
we already
Engineering
have
out of
a
Lake City.
contract
They
with them.
they really specialize in that. That's kind of our go-to for them. And like LaDonna said, we send them applications from time to time that we think that might be on the threshold of needing one, and they take into consideration quite a few elements, and then they make a recommendation back to us if they feel like it meets the need for having a traffic count or not. And he will list issues that he may have just in that review without a traffic count.
Right, right. We've had a recent application where there was an issue that they saw that wasn't even something that was in our wheelhouse, even something we were looking at. So they.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That's why they get paid the big bucks.
Any other questions or comments on any of these items, 12, 13, and 14? With nothing with that, we'll move into our next item, which is item 11, subdivision exemption, Arrowwood.
All right, so this is the last application that I have for you this evening. So this is an application for exemption to subdivision requirements for preliminary review. This is the property it's located in Sanderson, in between I-10 and US 90. It's the property that surrounds the new fire station there in Sanderson. So it's just north of I-10, but also encompasses the area along Wire Mill Road and Arnold Roden Road. It's just over 300 acres with a current land use of Ag B and a current zoning of Ag 7.5. There's no proposal to do any sort of land use or zoning change. The applicant proposes to record platted subdivision lots, but is not proposing the actual development of those lots. The lots, once recorded, would be available for individual purpose, and the buyers would develop individually. So here you have the land use, the zoning, and the flood maps. I did leave the kind of the legend on the bottom of these, just because there was so much going on. There's so many different zonings that touched this parcel. I thought it would be a little better to leave that legend. That way we don't miss any.
Has there been a wetlands delineation done, or is this just a FEMA map?
This is just FEMA, but we do have some wetland delineations. Yeah.
This doesn't look like nearly the wetlands that are actually there.
Right. We're gonna get to those. Yep. So this is just the FEMA map that you see here. So this is kind of a general what the preliminary plat would look like. It looks very busy. The reason it looks busy is this is that wetland delineation information. So you have the lot lines here, you have the wetland, the actual bona fide wetland lines, the flood zone lines, and those soil delineation lines here. So it does look a little busy. It is a little hard to see truly what you're looking at. So there was a lot of discussion about that at Thursday's LPA meeting. So since then, we've talked back and forth with the property owners, and they've provided us some clearer maps that truly show the wetlands. So here is the actual wetland map. And it does look quite a bit different than the FEMA flood zone. So you'll see out of that 300 acres, about 146 acres of it is wetland. So that is almost 50% of the property. So here you see those wetlands with the lot lines put on top of them, and it's a little easier to read than that preliminary map. So this doesn't really have the delineation information, just those wetland areas with the lot lines. So essentially what you would see in red would be the wetland area, and the green would be that truly usable space without a process. We'll come back to this one in just a second. So when we met last Thursday with LPA, my recommendation was denial, and it was denial as submitted with that very busy plat. There were several DRC comments that we talked about at great length. My biggest concern was the amount of wetland area versus the truly buildable area. And, as it stands right now, there would not be any sort of process necessary through the Water Management District or through FEMA. When you are simply dividing the land and there's no development process in place yet, there's no requirement. My concern would be that once we start to develop the land, at what point may we, if or when, trigger some sort of FEMA process that would require some sort of map amendment. If a property owner brought in quite a bit of fill dirt, I know they had to bring in a lot for the fire station. At what point would that be triggered? And if so, if it was triggered with, say property owner number 5, what does that look like for that property owner? Another one of my big concerns was the access. You could see there were 10 lots that would be potential access points onto 229 in between the interstate and the curve. 10 new driveways in that area is not ideal at all. So we had a lot of conversation back and forth with LPA. They had very similar concerns. One of the concerns they had, or one of the thoughts that they had, was the potential of a centralized ingress and egress, to just have one ingress and egress for all of those lots, and kind of have some sort of entrance with a cul-de-sac or something like that, to where you're only looking at one additional driveway on each side of 229. So LPA did recommend denial as it was submitted, but they were open to approval with some changes. The possibility of one ingress and egress being one change, and then for the current property owners to include some deed restrictions with no mobile homes, some minimum square footage, and also some deed restrictions that did not allow them to subdivide the lots any further. As far as my recommendation goes, I want some feedback from you guys. Do you have the same concerns? Do you have other concerns? Do you have, are there concerns we haven't thought of? Or my concerns, do you see any holes in my concerns? I will say the property owners over the last couple of days, we've had a lot of conversations back and forth, and they've been very, they've really listened to our concerns. The slide that we skipped, that I'll go back to. So they have proposed as a way to limit the driveways, that they've proposed that lot 5 and 6 have a shared drive along here. Lot 3 and 4 have a shared drive along here. There is a wetland strip through here, so it would not be feasible for the property owner at this point to have them share an access, so you would see 2 accesses there. And then the 4 lots on this side, 9 and 10 would share access, and 7 and 8 would share access. And if that is the route that we went, those would be noted on that plat when it's recorded, so that you can see that path of ingress and egress.
But the access for 9 and 10 would come through wetlands. You can catch crawfish at that between 9 and 10.
Yeah, so it's going to be close. It's going to be close. So there is there is that pocket there.
Well, when you drive by there, you'll see that the water goes all the way down to 8, and it don't take much rain to fill all of that up.
And that is the reason that there was not a shared drive proposed here, because you can clearly see that is.
And wetlands have buffer requirements. You can't build right up to them.
Right.
Right.
I think they need a better egress plan than what they have. And then when you look at 19, well, even 18, 19, 20, and 21, 90% of that property is wetlands.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a wetlands easement. Those are not buildable properties in my mind.
Yeah. So
when we say they're 10 acres, they're not.
Right. You'll look on page 2 of the staff report. You'll see the for all 26 lots, the acreage is there. Each lot, based on the wetland study, each lot has at least 1 acre of buildable area. So when you're looking at those lots like 21 and 20 and 19, those are going to be those lots that just have the 1 acre of buildable space there.
There's a lot of property there with limited space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard with all the culverts that we're looking at trying to put in. And now if they would take like lot 22, 23, 24, 25 with 1 entrance, then you can go to your 13. I don't think 2 entrances is feasible, but I think that you could take a lot of those and then have 1 entrance, because they're surrounded by wetlands. But you could have 1 entrance for 5 lots, 1 entrance for maybe, 8 or 9 lots, 13 through 21. You could have an entrance there. And then what gives me real heartburn is on 229.
Yeah, but you still have a problem, even if you have an acre per 10 acres of buildable. can't cross wetlands to get to the buildable area.
But if that's the reason I'm thinking you're not going to be able to get those many lots.
No,
You're going to have
That's kind of what I'm saying. Same
Yeah,
thing.
you're going to have some type of an access point, and then you're going to have to work around that access point on what you can build.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
could probably get.
'cause lot number 7, you don't even hardly have anything until you're at the back of the property.
Right, and you can't cross all those wetlands to build something. I mean, you can, but the mitigation cost
Right.
makes it
Residential home, who's
impossible to actually build something.
Well, and having that kind of residential density on the Arnold Road and Road against that industrial property, you're just asking for complaints. And the property on the corner right outside 15 across the road there on Wire Mill Road has been sold with the intention of eventually putting a concrete batch plant there. Not a good neighborhood for residential neighbors right next to you. So I just have a lot of questions before we move too far forward.
So,
Mr. Chairman?
This doesn't mean that they
Yes.
couldn't do it, but as far as what the request is before the board today is whether or not they qualify for a subdivision exemption, it sounds like your direction is no, they don't.
No.
Doesn't mean they can't subdivide, it's just they will have to go through all formal steps leading up to it.
Just to recommend an observation from staff was very similar to what you guys are all saying now. When we talked about this internally, in fact, Chris, Lee, Trevor, LaDonna, and myself met and talked. We all shared these exact same concerns. And one thing that we brought up, I mean, you can see where the fire station is in between parcels 10 and 11 on this map.
So it would be
Which is
right there.
Yeah, which is one of the higher points in elevation in this area, and it required $500,000 in site prep to be able to be a buildable lot. And so on a residential piece of
And
private
to be clear, we did not damage any wetlands.
we did not damage any wetlands, but it was a significant cost for a fire station to be built there. So our concerns is what kind of cost would a residential property require for site prep, and would that be would it be feasible for people to be able to build
It's
on?
not as bad as when you're doing commercial, but it's still, you have to use common sense. And
Yeah.
you have lot 7, the house is going to be sitting on top of the road, and he has no access to the back. Biggest part of his property has no access, period.
You're right.
But they're going to sell it as
That's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, so it's.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a lot.
And lot 1.
I have
lot 1
no
is
problem
similar
with
to
somebody
that.
doing something with their land, and I don't want to kind of put that out there.
Right.
But bring us a good plan.
Yeah. Wetlands are
This is
concerning.
not a good plan.
Yeah.
So what would be sort of a recommendation for you guys? Are there specific things that the current property owners could look at and bring to you that would make you feel comfortable with the exemption process? Or would your recommendation be that you would want to see the full subdivision
I'm going to see,
process?
you want to see a full
They need to go
subdivision.
through the full process because that has other requirements in our
Right,
ordinances
right.
that'll delineate that.
Even
and-
even with his wetlands delineation, don't mean you can build right up to the wetland.
No, not at all.
Your well, your septic tank, and all that has variations on what you can do.
Yeah, some of those have to be 50 or 100 feet away.
So it depends on what type of wetland we're looking at.
Yeah.
So with that, it's just, I think it needs to be go through the whole process and no kind of an exemption.
Okay.
I hate it, but the wetlands is just eating him up. Sure is.
And the agent for the property owners, he is here this evening, so if you guys have specific questions for him or specific, direction that you'd like to share, he is here.
I think he's heard from the board already that, unfortunately, he's got a swamp. And when you got that, you're going to have to go through the proper channels to make this subdivision work. And I hate to say it this way, but it's not up to us to figure out how it's going to work.
Right.
It's up to whoever the developer is to figure out how it's going to work. I appreciate him putting a plan together, and I appreciate him trying to do something with his property. But what is being done now is just not, to me, you're looking at a ton of drainage issues. And my access would be one down by 26, lot 26. I'd have an access probably coming in 13, 14. I definitely wouldn't have any access coming straight across from an industrial zone. As a builder, that's what I would recommend. It maybe come down to where 10 and 11, 12, 10 and 11 and 12 is, and have a access there for maybe those two lots. But the three on on the road, I just don't know what you're going to do with those, because they're just swamped by wetlands. And then you could do the same thing on the other side. You could combine all those lots with one entrance.
And that
You
was
might lose
that was
one
the
lot.
suggestion from LPA as
Yeah,
well.
but it's just too many access points. Too dangerous.
And that's a hurricane evacuation route.
Yes.
It is.
It is.
It is.
But I appreciate the opportunity to try to do something with that property out there.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why, you know, after the comments and recommendations from LPA, we did not want to completely start the process all over without getting some sort of direction or recommendation from you all, you know, because then if we came through with a secondary process and you know, you guys still had some concerns that could have been addressed initially, that just wouldn't be you know, wouldn't be fair to the applicant, and it wouldn't be, you know.
Well, you don't want them to spend a bunch of money.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I can respect that. But if it comes before us the way it is now, I just don't see it moving forward.
Understood.
Any other questions or comments from any on the board?
Thank you for all the information.
Any questions, comments for anyone in the public? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this,
If you
this is
state
the
your name and
application
your
for
address for the
agent.
record, please.
Absolutely. Yeah, my name is Pete Skirbo. I'm actually the applicant on behalf of Arrowwood FL. Question, I've heard this now from this board as well as from the other board. Both boards have echoed access. One access here, one access there. When you say access, what do you envision an access being?
Just a point of entry. Access is like one, you could go in with one road and then a roundabout or a
Okay.
cul-de-sac.
You're suggesting build a full-blown subdivision road by access.
Well, you could either do it that way, or you can go, there's other options where you do a HOA, and then they maintain their own road, slag it in, big cul-de-sac, and then they access off of that. There's many options you can go.
Sure.
But you can do a full-blown subdivision if you want to.
Understood, yeah, I just wanted to understand
Yeah.
what both boards meant by access. Just-
Yeah, but your access says that when you got so many access points
Yeah.
coming on there, that's
Yeah.
one thing. It's a county maintained road, so we got to worry about culverts. You got to worry about cleaning them out and ditches. It's just
Yeah.
it's a nightmare.
Yeah, a road, yeah.
And
just-
then health and safety on 229.
Understood, yeah, that's
Yeah.
why we reduced the curb cuts.
Yeah.
The intention of this was never to create
Yeah.
roads and a subdivision and all that. All these lots meet the requirements of the zoning for the area and lot size. In other counties where we do this nearby, Union County, Bradford County, Hamilton County, their exemption is slightly different than this one, where if it's a lot that meets the zoning requirements and it's on a county road, then it's exempt from subdivision.
Yeah.
There is no come to the board, you just go record the plat. So the intent of this project was large lots with 200 or more feet of frontage that meet the requirement of what you might see as an exemption somewhere else. So that was, our intention was never to build roads or anything.
You got large lots, but 90% of it's
Correct,
underwater.
yes, absolutely,
So to
yeah.
me, that's not a lot.
It meets the requirements.
I know
It's
that,
10 acres.
but
All these have been laid out so that
I
they-
deal in reality. And
I understand. Well, this is reality. So
No.
that is a wetland delineation.
Functionability, no,
Yeah,
it's not.
Yeah, no, I understand. I appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
Respect that. I just want to clarify that when you guys talk about access. Thank you
No
very much.
problem.
I
Appreciate you
it.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it for me.
All right, we're closing the public hearing. We're going to take 5 minutes and go into our regular meeting. I need a break.
Recess.
Recess.
Thank you.
We're going to go back into our regular scheduled meeting. On item number 4, approval of the COPCN agreements.
So
Chief?
the COPCN for the new commissioners is a certificate of public convenience and need. It allows, by state law, the county to regulate how many ambulance services are allowed in the county. And obviously, you have to have a balance of, if you had 20 of them, then nobody would get any of the business. So you kind of have to keep an eye on how many you allow. Currently, right now, there's 5 counting Baker County Fire Rescue. So there's 4 private services that come to the county. We haven't had any requests in the last year to have any new services added by the hospital or they're our major user of the service. I actually put some stats into the record that about 1,500 transports between the hospital and the nursing homes and taking people back home from Century Ambulance and some of the others. So, it is beneficial to the county to have these. These just have to be done every 2 years. One of the things that's always a surprise, it's happened the last 2 times that I've done the renewal, is that they asked me what the fee is for renewal. And 2 years ago, I approached the board with the sheet that you see here, and it was just a idea of what other counties charge. And the average between the counties that do charge is about $1,255 for initial fee, and then about $543 for the renewal. You have to think of this as kind of like a business license. These are multi-million-dollar companies that are coming into Baker County to do business. They don't apply for a business permit, or they don't apply for a business license, but they do have to give us information every 2 years based on showing like their plan for communications, their insurance, who their personnel. Do they have trucks that are roadworthy, and you get what I'm saying, that they're a competent company. So I have to do the review of that stuff, and they send that stuff to me, and part of that is to get their information on how many runs they did. And I haven't had any requests to take anybody off from any of the vendors, the people that use them. But I would like for the county to, first of all, approve the COPCNs as presented for renewal for all 5, and then secondly to consider having this business license fee for the COPCN, either the initial fee if we have a new company comes in, or a renewal fee of just $500 for each. This year would be exempt. We wouldn't charge these because obviously they've already made application, their stuff's already been reviewed. But the next time they review, we would send it out and say, this next time it would be $500.
Trevor, you may just want to make that part of your request during the budget cycle to amend the fees.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that would be a good time to do it because that's when the new budget comes in.
Yes, sir. And it was part of the Visions Committee recommendations when we went through that last year.
To implement the fee?
Sir?
To implement the fee?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would there be any legal objection to doing the fee or anything we need to put together for that?
No, everybody else does it.
Okay. But nothing we need to do too much to enact it. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just when Trevor and I talked about this, we wanted to honestly just bring it up again. We talked about it a year ago. We know that there was a lot of conversations at the time. We're talking about a lot of other revenue sources right now. So just wanted to put it back out there that this is one that potentially we could. I said they're shocked when we tell them there is no fee. They're like, are you sure? So it's just one for future consideration of the board to possibly.
My recommendation would be an $800 initial and a $400 renewal.
Yes, sir.
If we go that route.
And obviously we would exempt ourselves as the county.
No, you would have to pay that.
Well, y'all take good care of me, so I'll if that's what you request.
I think that it's fair. I've seen some of the numbers. They're running $1,000, $1,200, $1,500. So if we're 8 and renewal half that, I think would be fair.
Okay.
And it would cover your expense of sitting down and going through the paperwork, submitting it, and all that.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm sorry, you made a good point. I mean, this is also, these fees are not revenue generating fees.
No.
They're just to cover our
Cover our
costs
costs.
for what it costs for us.
I'm not wanting to make money on it, we're just trying to
Right.
cover our costs.
Exactly, yeah.
Because, these are saving people's lives.
Mhm.
Right, and they're vital
So,
service, and they take
They
a lot of
vital,
the
we
heat off
gotta
of
have them,
us.
so I don't wanna, it's not a money maker, it's just covering our expenses.
Right, it takes time to review everything and make sure that the hospital and the state hospital are all happy and, you know, so.
But I would recommend those fees.
Okay.
Yeah. Me too.
Sure, thank you.
But right now, we're looking at, for an approval of the COPCN renewal certificates. There's 5 of them.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve the COPCN renewal certificates, all 5 of them.
Second.
A motion second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Chief, you got the floor.
So do you want us to bring back that during budget? Is that what your recommendation was, or was it?
I'm sorry, for COPCN, that's what I was recommending because you're not going to see a renewal until you get 2 years out. For your other ones, you may want to do those earlier.
Okay, gotcha.
We can put together a policy and put it back.
I think we
before
should
go.
put a policy together on what the rates are going to be. That way, if any time between now and the next time we have to bring in a new member, we can go ahead and enact those rates.
Yes, sir.
And your
Instead of having to
existing-
wait a year.
And your existing providers have plenty of notice that they're,
Right.
that they're
So
gonna
if we go
have
ahead
a
and enact
renewal
the
fee.
policy now, then next year you can let them know.
Mhm.
Actually, I'm required to send this COPCN to them whenever it gets signed and recorded by the clerk and the chair. And so when I send that to them, I'll tell them that in 2 years it'll be $500. It's
400.
400. Okay, I misheard you. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's $800
Okay.
initial fee and then a $400
That's what I
renewal.
wrote down.
All right.
I would say do that sooner rather than later. That way we can go ahead and approve it.
And,
Yeah.
and then if somebody comes to me
That way,
next-
whenever you do
Just-
send it back to them,
Yeah,
you
just
know.
bring it back before the board as a policy change and we can
We can
make
do
it.
that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, item number 6.
5 first, sir.
Oh, sorry, standby rates.
Yes, sir. So,
Sorry.
yeah, this is just a consideration, it's an information item only for EMS standby rates. And what I mean by that is there are certain events that happen in the community that private people set up events, for instance, the rodeo or the motocross event at Shoals Park. Just depending on 911 is not what they want. They want a dedicated truck to sit there, an ambulance. So
Sometimes their event permits require it.
right, and we've actually gotten into some discussions with the sheriff's office about getting
Event
back,
permits,
coming
yeah.
to you with about an ordinance about, you know, if it's a event of certain sizes, having certain amount of coverage for law enforcement and EMS fire rescue. Because obviously, we want to make sure that people are protected. And if they're going to have a money-making event, you know, in this situation, then they should be required if they want to have it, you know, or there should be a requirement to have a unit. In Jacksonville, you know, when they do the football games, they have probably 50 EMS people there, you know, and they have probably 150 police officers. So every size event, and we're going to do some research and come up with some recommendations as far as the ordinance for that in a future time. It's about triggers, but for now, I would like the board to consider any type of private event. I got with Sarah last year. We've been in charge in the Olustee battle for years, and when our mandate came in a few years back, we told them that we were going to be going up on rates because our cost to provide service of our employees, the cost of insurance, everything of that nature, the vehicles, the medications, all the things that we provide had went up. So we sent them a bill and sent them a notice that it's going to go up. This year, I got with Sarah about the rodeo and the motocross, and we checked around before we did, and we called Century. Their rate was $225 an hour. That's the crew and the truck. Covers the insurance, everything with that. Liberty their ALS truck is $250 an hour. MedTrust is $250 an hour, and AmeriPro is $2.12 an hour. Those are all the ones that have the COPCNs for Baker County. So I asked her if $200 was a good rate to do for Baker County. It was less than any of the private providers would charge, and we agreed to that, and that's what we've charged those private events. And then obviously with Lusty being a nonprofit event for that helps with the county, that with TDC type stuff, bringing people in and things, which they all do that, but it being a nonprofit, we sent them a bill this year for half of that, $100 an hour. So we were out there 28 hours with sometimes 3, and actually Sunday we had 4 people out there assigned because of just the crowd size and the amount of calls we had on Saturday. Sir?
If we're just moving money from one pocket from TDC to fire and rescue, why wouldn't you charge them $200?
And I'm okay with that, and
It's
I think
not coming from TDC. It
that
comes
onus
from the
becomes
Lusty battle.
Yeah,
on the TDC to put that in.
They don't get a lot. People might think there's a lot of extra money there, but there is not. I'm on the board for the Lusty.
Yes, sir.
And it is very expensive to put
Yeah.
on.
And we realized that, and we had to have 4 people out there on Sunday because Saturday we had, I think, 6 or 7 calls at one time, between or within an hour or two. And so our people were going back and forth. We were moving our on-duty trucks out there to take people off the scene and cover some calls. So.
And that brings up something Commissioner Bennett said in the past. I would just say you got to be careful. You may want to use the private ALS because you don't want to take so many units out of service that
one thing that we
mutual
want to
aid.
make sure people understand is those rates are calculated because those people are on overtime. So we're not taking one of our regular trucks that would be at the Sanderson Fire Station and moving it to the Old Lusty battlefield for the day. It is
It's
an
extra
extra.
Okay.
It's an extra
apologize,
expense.
I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
understand
No,
that.
I'm glad you said that because I was actually going to mention that this is overtime cost for the county. And again, we don't require that. So in other counties and jurisdictions, there are event permits you have to get. So Baker County does not have that requirement. So ours is only at a request. So the enduro race that we have at Shoals Park, because of the participants and the type of activity, they want to have one there. They don't, and Shoals Park is very far out. So for them and their club members there, they like to have that added. So this is not something that we're requiring at this point. If a person had an event and they wanted to just wait for EMS to respond like any other scene, that's acceptable. This is above and beyond what we would do for our normal daily operations in these events, which is why we're considering this. So we've just had this discussion recently, and obviously if this is something we're going to continue to do, it needs to be formalized.
I think you need to get a policy back before the board and make it policy.
Is this something language that you guys like this? I mean, are y'all, and that's really for the discussion is are y'all okay with these types of rates? I mean, is this something that you feel like we're in the right ballpark before we presented something? I mean, in the research that we've done, I think it's fair. It's a fair cost. Again, we're not trying to make money off of this, but if it's an extra overtime truck, we certainly need to cover the cost.
And I
to have it
know
there.
with Olusty, because we had this conversation our last meeting, if we know the fee, then we can budget and try to plan for that amount.
Right.
That was the whole thing, because we wasn't charged for so many years and then all of a sudden charged.
Yeah.
And we didn't know it to budget it, and so.
But if you split it up over everybody coming, it might be an extra $1.
Yeah.
I'm at a point where if y'all if they're requesting y'all to be there, you got to pay.
Right, and we did the Lusty battle. We paid. We charged them the first 2 years I was here, and then COVID hit.
Right.
And then we said they didn't have a Lusty, and then the next year the board felt like, hey, they suffered last year because they didn't have any revenue, so they didn't charge them the year after COVID, and then last year and then this year was the when the revenue or the invoices went back out. So.
Well, I mean, everything you're talking about, just because I work in more than one jurisdiction, this is like normal everywhere else. I'll say that Bradford, actually, this last year, they created a policy where they're now charging hospitals for, they call it wall time. You probably know what that is.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
When they take a ambulance to a hospital and the hospital doesn't, they make them sit there for an hour before they'll unload the patient, and those were just hours lost. Now we're charging the hospital for that time. Fix things up.
Yes, and that is a consideration in the future. And the other question about this is, what do we do about football games? We've always provided a rescue for the school board, but then like last year they said, well, we want to have a rescue for the JV games. Well, then I had to, send some crew down there that on overtime, and so that costs the county money. So how do we treat the school board in this realm? And
I think they should pay also.
Right. So that's right, and because there is an expense there, and so
But you know what? Having a rescue unit at a football game, if somebody gets hurt, the lawsuit's going to be a lot more than whatever they pay in the.
Well, it's actually a requirement for the varsity games. It's a requirement. So.
But I mean, would it be the 200 or the 100? I would think that would be a nonprofit, though.
Yes, sir. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
You're only talking.
The only question I have, and this is the $100 cover the cost?
Yes, sir.
It covers the cost
Yes,
of the 2 men and the machine.
Yes, sir.
The ambulance
for
being there.
For the
Per
football
hour.
game, yes, sir. For
As long as we're
4
covering our-
hours, that's $400.
As long as we're covering our costs.
Yes,
What we don't want to get into thing is we're still paying more money out
Yeah, you're subsidizing.
than what we're subsidizing.
Yes,
So
sir.
if it's going to cover the costs, then that's what we need. We're not in the money-making business. I mean, that's not what we're
Right.
here for.
Right.
But we are here, we should cover the costs. Every taxpayer in the county is not paying for these events
Right.
because they don't use them. A lot of people don't like football. They don't go to football. I love football.
Right.
Don't bother me seeing an ambulance sitting there, but some people don't want to say, hey, I'm paying for that ambulance to sit there.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's sometimes we just cover our costs. As long as we're covering our expenses, the county's not paying for it. I think that we need to cover our costs.
And I think something to consider too. I'm sorry, that look at Trevor was just about the sirens too. Just then, like they're circling the building. I feel like, but
Yeah, like third time.
There are certain situations where you can stage your truck because it's close to your station. Like the football games are relatively close
Right.
to the station, so we could look at at events where your regular truck could sit there, but then they're got to leave. Now, if you've got to have a dedicated one sitting there all the time, it
When
doesn't
you got
do
a
that.
dedicated unit,
Then
you
they
can
have to
leave.
have it for the football game.
That's what I'm saying. If you didn't need a dedicated unit, but you could somehow just use your regular unit to sit there.
I wouldn't even
I
entertain-
think the options
Right.
for that would be few and far between. But
Yeah, I
we
wouldn't
could
even
look
entertain
for
that. Either you want an ambulance or you don't. If you
Yeah.
do a you got
Yeah.
to pay for a dedicated
Right,
ambulance.
and if you don't, it stays at the station.
Exactly.
Right.
You
Right.
call.
Right.
911
Call
like
if you need
Right.
it.
Or you have to wait on mutual aid if we run out,
I
just
don't
like
think you
everybody
need to
else.
You can make everything too complicated,
Right.
and we don't
Yeah.
want to make this complicated.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do think we need to look at covering the cost of the expense
We would.
of
Yes, sir.
of the county.
But that $100 covers the 2 people in the unit. It doesn't cover when you have to augment from on-duty staff.
Right.
So,
I mean, we can stick with a blanket policy for every bit of it if you wanted to,
I
as they
think
say,
to cover
split the
your
baby
cost.
and do $150 an hour for all of them, and then that way it's, a little bit less than what the privates are charging, but then we're, but that's entirely up
I
to
think
y'all.
you need to do some numbers and come up with a true number on what it actually costs an ambulance to sit there for an hour
Yes,
with
sir.
2 men.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you've got fuel, maintenance costs.
There's a lot of costs. You'd be surprised. Even when I bid a job, I'm like at the end of it, and I'm like, this is double what I thought when I first thought about it.
Yeah.
So all them things play. You got insurance on your payroll, insurance on the truck,
They're
all
all
that
in
stuff.
costs for those employees.
I think you need to cover your cost.
All in costs for the
And
truck.
for me, when you said $100 covers the cost, it's hard for me to believe
That
that.
sounds
Yeah.
super
Yeah,
low.
Cheryl's over here calculating in her brain. She probably
I'm
give us
thinking
a
you're
number.
looking at $200 flat across
I
the
said when
board.
we looked at it before, I mean, $200 was close to what.
I just
I mean,
don't
that's
see
how
how
we
you
came up
could
with
roll
that
an
figure.
ambulance for
Yeah.
$100 an hour.
And the thing about the Lusty battle is, again, if they know ahead of time, they can put the money back, through the TDC.
Most of your nonprofits raise money.
Right.
They just have to raise a little extra money to pay for their safety.
Right.
I mean, it's not like they're raising money for waste, it's for the safety of the people.
But I do think there should be a difference between nonprofit and profit.
Yes, sir.
coming to this.
And that's why I
feel
say
like
we can
it
cover
should
the, if it's $50, it's $50, but we still need to cover the cost for the
Yeah,
county.
yeah.
I don't
Whatever
wanna give them
covers the
$100
cost.
and then us eat $50.
Yeah, me either. I think we're okay with covering the cost, but I
Right.
think if you're a profit and you're making money, then it should be more than
Yeah.
what a nonprofit does.
But we just need to look at
Correct.
that number, what the true number is.
Yes, whatever that is.
We can do that.
And a nonprofit's not gonna have a problem with that anyway, when they request an ambulance to be sitting there.
Yes, sir. I'll
You
get
know
those
what?
numbers together for y'all.
Might want to just check with the sheriff's office. Do they give a different rate to nonprofit versus profit, like if they have to do traffic control? And I honestly, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We can reach out to them.
Mhm.
Sorry. Okay, I have my direction and I'll bring something back to y'all at the
You
next
got
meeting.
one more,
Yes, sir.
transport fees.
Yes, sir. So, one of the things, again, that we talked about in the Vision Committee was to look at our EMS transport fees, how much we were charging based on each type of call. And as you see on the green sections, depending on what type of level the call is, whether it's an ALS emergency or an ALS 2 or a BLS, it all depends on what we do to the patient. Okay, there's the green section shows you what each county is charging. If you just want to take and look at the small block below it, you'll see Baker County, and that's our rate is $537 for ALS 1, $450 for ALS 1 with an EMT, NEMT. These are all codes that the government uses to bill patients. ALS 2 is $778, ALS 3, which is specialty care, $919, BLS 452, and BLS with NEMT is $350, and then mileage is $13.96 a mile, and then no matter whether it's within 17 miles or 18. Those all have different codes that you use. If you'll look at the line right below that, it shows the average, and that's the average of the 17 counties in Florida that are listed above. Now, there is an outline there up there in Bay County. They have a really high rate, but so that's driving the number a little bit. But if you look down at the bottom, Baker County versus the average of all the other counties, we're on ALS 1 we're 32%, then we're 44%, then below we're 11% below on the ALS 2, we're 4% below on ALS 3. We're 35% lower on BLS 1. We're 66% lower on BLS with NEMT. And our mileage, though, is pretty much the average of what everybody charges, around $14 a mile. So what I'm proposing to you is, these are the user fee for people that we bill private insurance and things like that. Obviously, Medicare goes in and cuts off what they want. You can see the rates for Medicare that are highlighted in yellow. So that's all we get from Medicare, which is about, half of our budget. So we're already going into this with a deficit of what we charge now. Is that the federal government's coming in and saying this is all you can charge. So
Imagine that.
So at the top of the next page, you'll see where I have a gray section, and I essentially took all those other counties off. And these were the rates that I'd like to propose to the county, is move to the average. We would be right there at the average of $700 for ALS 1, $650 for the ALS 1 with NEMT, which would be right at the average there.
What page are you on?
Yeah,
I think they're a little out of order, yeah.
I think they made 2 copies on them. Keep going.
Yeah, I think we got, I don't know what the.
Graph.
This rate.
Well, when we do the ADA
This
conversion on
way,
this stuff, it messes it up
700, 650.
Yes, sir, there you
sometimes,
go.
yeah.
$850.
Here you go.
This is it?
Yep.
Okay.
It was like second from the back.
So $700, $650.
I would have did all that.
$850, $950, $600, nice even numbers. $550 on the next page, and then $14 for
Yeah.
the mileage.
Messed
Um,
up. I didn't notice.
So, like some direction on that. Just a little bit before we go into that. Our current collection rate is 66%, but then when you go in and take out the discounts and the adjustments that insurance companies take, or the government takes and stuff, we've got about a 74% collection rate right now. The first 6 months since October 1, we've brought in $492,000 to the county coffers for transporting patients. And that's 1,366 transports since October 1, and that's an increase of 8% over the last year's numbers. And that's an increase of about $50,000 in revenue in that 6-month period last year. So we had about 441, I think it was, last year in the same 6-month period, and this year we're at 492. So the only reason I say that is our run volume continues to get busier. We're transporting more patients, and these are not. We're still doing very minimal. The inter-facility for the hospital, probably less than 7 or 8 a month, if that. So they're taking care of their own for the most part. We're taking the really critical stuff out they need, mainly in the middle of the night is when they can't get a truck here from somewhere else, when they don't have their contract truck. But I would like the board's direction on moving forward with the fee change.
When would the change take effect?
It could take effect immediately. Our billing company could implement it, and we'd probably see the revenues change in about 3 months, because it takes about 3 months for the insurances to get the new rate and or them to bill it, and then they get through the process.
Will these rates affect the ones that we just done the COPCNs with? Do they charge us? They have their standard rate, or we have our standard rate?
They have their own rates that they charge.
Do you know what their rates are?
I know that one of them is really high in the thousands to transport a patient.
Yeah, Century.
So
is that one of these? I mean, is that?
No, that's just county.
No, sir. This would be just for Baker County Fire
Yeah, I'm
Rescue.
just asking. I didn't know if you had looked at their numbers to see where there was that.
I have not. I tried to base it on county-based EMS services to
Right.
kind of get apples to apples, because they're a private entity, and I know that sometimes those are running a little bit higher than even county EMS services.
But I'm gonna tell you, from my point, the ambulances is doubled, medications is doubled, fuel hadn't helped us any.
Personnel costs.
Personnel
higher.
costs is higher, everything's higher, and we haven't went up on the rates, and so I know since I've been sitting here.
When is the last time we went up on the rates for these?
I didn't have any historical data.
There ain't no
I
historical
think
data.
I think it's about 10.
Kirkland was the last time I remember someone asking.
What's that?
Sorry?
I said David was the last time I remember someone asking.
I think it was when they went to AMB, which was about 10 years ago, or a little bit earlier than that.
It was.
But it hasn't been in the last 6 years since I've been here. And
But this would only affect the people that's using the ambulance.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes, sir.
No, I would say go ahead, move forward with it. My personal opinion, everything
What
we
would
do
we-
costs more.
Helicopter.
And we're still lower than probably 70% of the counties.
Y'all are still lower than just about anyone.
To do that.
I think you just need direction from the board. I mean, it's not a voting.
You can give consensus, because you're going to vote on it when it comes back.
It
for
will
the
come
final
back.
anyway.
Oh, it doesn't have to come back? You want to?
The final numbers will come back, so they just need to give board direction or consensus to you.
Okay. Right.
You might want to take just a second with that. It's going to be hard to hear on the recording.
I don't think we can do it in the form of a motion tonight.
Okay.
Can you just come in as an information only?
That's okay, though.
It needs to come back in as a proposal.
We can do that. And also, to further answer Commissioner Mann's question, if this is something that you'd like to provide more notice, we can always put it a date in the future that effective, with the new budget year or things like that. So that's something you guys can consider as well. So obviously there's some time to get it inputted into the system. So we know that would be probably at least 3 months before you could start.
What's that?
The fees, if you did want to make some kind of, public service announcement that the fees were changing, you could make the date a little farther in the future to give some advance notice, but just something to consider.
These fees are going to be considered by your insurance companies. They're going to pay you what they're going to pay you anyway.
Right. And then say a person has a
90% of it.
$200 copay, that's not going to change what they pay out of pocket. It's the insurance is going to pay more, or if it's an attorney adjustment, they're going to try to, they're going to.
This
they're gonna pay
medical
more.
is a whole different ball game than putting a roof on.
Yes, sir.
I give you a hard number, that's what it costs.
Right.
Here, they're going to play ball with you.
Yes, sir.
And that's the reason you see a lot of those numbers in the 1,200. They figure they might get 8.
Right. Well, and it's the
It's
thing
just-
also
it's
is
a
if you
gain.
notice we had a 74% collection rate. That means that 26% are not paying. So we still have to be
Right.
able to, pay for that 26%,
Right.
for
In
for
loss.
the
So
self-pays that.
right now, we're significantly below average and still not getting 20%.
Right.
Well, that's standard across the board.
Right.
Although
Yeah.
I think that's higher than we have been, because we were in the 60s for a
Oh,
while.
we was
It's-
getting
it's
50,
doing
we was at
better.
fi-
But either way, I mean, that explains some revenue issues that we're looking at. You know what I mean?
Right. Last year, we estimated 875,000 would come in revenue, and it was 944. So
Yeah.
for the total for last year's revenue. So this would put, if we stayed at where we're at right now, we'd be almost at $1 million, but that still doesn't cover our budget for EMS.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
Well,
this,
it
this,
we
this
have to
helps
eat-
some of that situation,
Yeah.
so
Right, yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, I
Thank
like
you.
the numbers that you're at, so, yeah, bring back more details and let's make it an action item.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Item number 7, consideration of the financial forensic audit. Miss Sarah, you
I am, yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this was briefly discussed at the last county commission meeting, and it was at the request of one of our commissioners to get some more direction, I guess, on it. It is listed for action, but I'll tell you, it's really only direction. There's not any action expected to be taken tonight in the form of anything formal, just direction from you all. But again, just following up on the conversation from our county commission meeting 2 weeks ago. Like I said, it was stated that that it's potential, that the county might consider a deeper audit than what's currently done by just the normal audit annually. So that's where we're at. Just for a discussion, like I said, and just direction from the board, if that's something that we want to work towards now. I know that there were some conversations also about possibly waiting until the audits were complete and done. I know we're going to talk about the one audit a little later tonight, which I don't know if Commissioner Mobley wants to make that part of this conversation. But honestly, like I said, we're just looking for some direction. So I was asked to place it on here so that we can have a more formal conversation about what the direction of the board might be.
any comments? I've got mine, but I'll reserve them till y'all get.
Go ahead.
Let's just talk about now the audit itself, the forensic audit.
Okay.
We will talk about the other later. I
Okay.
don't want to get them. I don't want to. Huh?
Sorry?
That's going to be a change on the agenda, is that okay?
For what?
What do you mean?
We're talking about an update now on the audit?
No,
We're not talking about
We're gonna
it
do
now.
that under prior business.
We're gonna talk about
looking
that
at
later.
number 7, new business.
Yeah, that's why we just talked about the forensic now.
Just forensic. I can tell you my opinion. My opinion is right now we are just got through an audit. We got another audit coming. We've hired a CPA firm, which we still don't know what we're going to have to pay for. I'm not saying that we don't need to do a forensic audit eventually, but I think we need to look at what numbers we're fixing to have to pay out now to get us where we're caught up with the audit where we need to be, and then let's have this conversation. Because I don't want to go out and spend $200,000 on a forensic audit, and then we still have another audit we have to pay for. So I think that we would be way ahead getting all of our audits caught up, getting the books where they need to be, and then if we want to have that discussion, let's have it then. But right now, in the middle of what we're going through, I just don't see where it's a good idea. But I'm not saying it's a bad idea eventually, but right now, we got good news today, and we'll talk about that later, but we need to keep moving forward in the process and get caught up on our books, caught up on our audits, and then that's when you want to bring somebody in and do an overview of the whole thing. You get too many irons in the fire, we're going to be in a mess just like we was just in. My personal opinion.
Correct. I can agree with that. I'm looking at it right here. I know we paid, let me see, we got 99 plus 5 plus 5 plus 2, around 111,000 for the James Moore audit this year. So I know a forensic audit would probably be more than the 111 that we just paid to get it done now. You know, I'm not opposed to having somebody come in and look at it. At the same time, that's quite a bit of money. I know there is some government auditors that can come in at the request. I believe, I don't know if it would be through the board or through somebody else to come in and look at it through JLAC. I don't know if that's an avenue we can explore and just see, you know, hey, could we save some of that money and have them do it in-house? Like I said, we're getting this audit done. We got the next one, which we'll talk about. But at the same time, that's going to be quite a bit of money. Is there another alternative through the state that we could utilize?
I think we just need additional information before we can decide what we need to do. Partially waiting on what's our timeline for the current audit and how can we, you know, because we don't want to, like Commissioner Anderson was saying, we don't want to throw too much into mud and then not be able to make progress from where we are. So I think it's something we need to get additional information on before we even consider moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So we could probably go ahead and move forward with some of the recommendations you was making about looking at the state, what a cost of one would actually be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just phone calls and stuff like that. I'm not saying not to do that part, but far as to get a deep dive, and then we're trying to get another audit prepared. We just finished one.
Right.
I think we need to get caught up and then really have a serious conversation on that. But right now, just to throw something in there, I think.
If there's more specifics that y'all are looking for, I mean, you have an auditor, you can expand the scope of what they do without having to go out and find someone else.
I know that.
Because otherwise you usually got.
But I don't want to have the conversation that I wanted to have about that today. It's hard to. It's not that I'm trying to hide something.
I understand.
It is just sometimes you just don't. Let's get this auditor to get finished with what he's got, and then let's have the conversation.
I understand.
Well, I agree with the chairman. I think we've got an audit already done. We're getting another one. I don't think it's time for anything else.
Right.
I think let's look at our audit that we get. Maybe fine.
And you can, and he's the attorney's correct that you can expand on your audit.
Right. If there's a question, he can go back and get it.
But the thing is, we have to
we got to finish the first one.
We have to finish the first one, and then that's when you want to expand upon what you got. You don't want to do it at midstream, and then you might not want to do it with the person that you got doing it.
I got you.
So you just.
I misspoke on that. I said 111,000. It was 107 for the 22-23 audit. It'd be 111 for the 23-24.
Yep.
So I want to clarify that real quick. But I agree. I think we should kind of table this for a little while, and you know, maybe if it's comes back around, then we can discuss.
I ain't say it's dead. I'm just saying that now's not the time.
Sure.
Not a problem. We have our direction. Like I said, that's all we were requested to get.
Okay. We'll move into our next item on our business, pending business report.
Yes, sir. I'm going to kind of move quickly through this. If I go too fast or if I don't cover something, let me know. COA bus wash, we've gotten some conflicting information, to be quite honest. I actually was talking offline about it to Commissioner Mobley. Commissioner Anderson, I did share it with you also for us to look at. So when we're testing it on our end and the city has tested it, we are reaching the amount of water pressure that we need to reach. The contractor has gone out with their company and done some calibration testing, and they're saying that it's still not. So at this point, we're going to have to dig a little deeper and find someone else that can come out and advise us on that. So it seems to be, obviously it's functioning, everything works, but to ensure the stability of the equipment, you need a certain, gallons per minute. So we're getting conflicting information on that. We were hopeful that that issue was resolved. Everything that we tested showed that was resolved. However, that calibration test has showed that there's an issue. So I jokingly said, well, maybe his calibration is off. Like, when has he had that machine calibrated? But so we're going to continue to work on that. Again, we're going to have to dig a little deeper on getting a solution to that one. Like I said, I'm concerned that the calibration tests aren't matching at this point. I think we need to find out what's going on with that first.
Two options. First, you get someone else out here to calibrate it.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
This other option we have, we need to look at if it doesn't meet capacity. So we need to look for a reservoir tank option or a booster pump with a small reservoir. They both work.
Yeah.
We just don't know what the cost is, and that might be something that you can go ahead and start just looking into what we're looking at. Because the thing is, we got to have a bus wash.
Right.
We spent all that money out there to get the thing bus washed, now we ain't got the water flow. So if we can't get the water flow, we got to get an option with a reservoir tank and how many gallons it's going to have to be.
Right.
Or a booster pump with a reservoir. You have two options.
Right.
Me, I would go with the storage tank. So when you put a booster pump out there, that's another maintenance item we're going to have to deal with in the future.
Yeah.
So I would look at a reservoir tank. All it is a reservoir tank that holds enough water to wash your next bus. That's all it is. And then while that one's being washed, your tank's
Filling
getting
it up.
full. And then,
Yeah.
but if you put a booster pump out there, then we got another part that's going to have to be replaced about every 2 or 3 years because they wear out.
Yeah, so, and I agree, Commissioner Anderson, that's really, the recommendations that were made were exactly what you just suggested. So we're gonna work on that calibration first to confirm that that's where we're at. We'll get something going on that, and then if that truly is the answer, then we'll work on prices for what those options may be. Again, it's just again adds to the frustration of the ongoing issues there with this water, but we're staying on top of it and trying to get some kind of resolution done for it. The other update, most of these have not had significant updates since our last commission meeting, but we did have Mr. Doug Moore visited the Sanderson Community Center with his architect that specializes in ADA compliance, and so we're hopeful to have some kind of proposal back, on what it's going to take to get the bathrooms at that facility done. Mr. Moore has come out as a community partner and is helping with this. This is actually the engineering and that's being done. He has said that he'd like to donate that to the county, so that's the reason why he's been coordinating that efforts. Is he's got some contacts through his business dealings, and that's why we're working towards that. So we are anxiously awaiting what that review looks like and what those recommendations may be on making that building more ADA compliant. And then moving on down the list, the COA, Senior Life Enrichment Center, they are there. We are planning for a groundbreaking. I've sent you guys some information on that. You should have got some calendar invites from me on when that groundbreaking is. So that's going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks. So let me know if you didn't get that.
I didn't get it. I didn't get it, but that's normal for me.
I sent it out, I think, after our last commission meeting. I think it's May 8th, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. I'll go back and look and see. And I'll resend it just to be
Where
sure.
are we at on the punch list for COA? Do you know?
I haven't gotten any calls about an outside.
I haven't got any calls, and that's always good.
Yeah.
So
I'll double check
it
to
makes
be
me
sure.
nervous when I don't get calls.
Yes, sir. I haven't gotten any issues on that one.
Okay.
And then last but not least, the courthouse generator. Again, this is one that continues to stay high on our radar list, but of course, we're just waiting on product delivery at this time. But we are continuing to monitor that and meet our reporting obligations on that grant appropriation project. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but for the sake of time, that's the summaries of the substantial changes since our last commission meeting.
Any other questions for Sarah? If not, we'll move to our next item. American Rescue Plan, any updates?
No, sir. No changes to that report.
Okay, we'll move to our next one, consideration of fire special assessment study.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So this is a repeat topic. Again, I think that you can see from the conversations we've had tonight that we are trying to think outside the box of not just going to, the special assessments and looking at revenue that could be generated. We've talked about several different options. While they're not substantial changes, they could, obviously generate more revenue. But this was a topic of discussion 2 weeks ago. You all asked for a little time to consider this and to be brought back, so that is what we're doing tonight. Just to remind everybody, this would be for this study through Bryant Miller Olive and their sub-consultant Stantec. That's who we used in previous review of our special assessment. They developed the methodology for the increase that we did several years ago. We are able to contract directly with them, as Mr. Commando clarified at our last commission meeting. We can contract directly for legal services, which is what Bryant Miller Olive is, and that's how we come up with those suggestions. The rate for the study is $61,760. This is very comparable to a price that we got from the same company about 2 years ago. We were proposed at $60,000, and we have had some discussions with a neighboring county who are under contract right now with the same company for the same assessment, and their rate was almost identical. So we feel confident in the rate that we've been provided is a good rate, that they're not, overcharging us for anything on that. But again, at this time, if the board still wants to think about it longer, we can certainly do that. However, at the last direction was to bring it back in 2 weeks for us to review it again. So that's simply what we're here for tonight.
Any discussion from the board?
We've heard a lot, even in the meeting tonight, about road maintenance, emergency response of the county road department, and we all know that the funds for the county road department is not sufficient to take care of the roads that we have, plus do the maintenance work that some of it's been neglected for 40 years. I feel like we need to move forward, and having the study done is just the first step.
Any other comments?
I'm not really ready to make that decision. To spend that much money for something I don't know if I want to look into.
This is just for the fire
Just for the-
assessment, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I know there's a lot of cost with everything that we got going right now. I'm not sure right now is the time. I'm kicking it around.
That was one of my thoughts within the last meeting. I wanted to find out more about our audit. Everybody knows audit was a hot topic, and I wanted to find out more about what it's going to cost us. And I want to continue on the pace that we're continuing on, so I don't want to back off on the audit and the preparation and what it's going to take, the help we need, whatever we need to do to get back on track. It's one of the reasons I don't want to jump off on any more funding right now. I'm not saying that it's something we might not want to readdress in the future, but to me, we have priorities, and right now our priority is to get the county and get the help that they need on the finance end, whatever they need. And we need to look at some of that stuff on what we got to do to keep our audits, finances, and everything in check. For me right now, it's hard for me to, because I tell you, we've put a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I'm not saying this is not needed. I think that we need more firemen. I think we need more fire apparatus. I think we need one more full-time station.
I'm sorry.
But we do have other obligations we have to think about too. And right now, if we don't get our finances in order and get that system working, and the communication skills that we need between the offices working, to me, that's priority. And right now, to me, it's more priority than an audit or a assessment that might not even give us anything. We might spend I'm telling you, we might spend $61,000, and they come back and say you're maxed out.
I apologize, I was confusing the gas tax and special assessment.
Cool. But this is a fire special assessment, and I just don't, I love my firefighters, and they know it.
Yep.
But
I'd like to-
I just can't support that right now. I'm not saying I mightn't. After the next budget cycle, we can go back and readdress it and look at it. Right now, we need to get all of our finances and stuff like that, our house in order before we look at something like that might not even net us anything. And if we need to look at more employees on the finance side, that's where we need to be more basing the county finances than we are over having more firefighters, which I wish we had a firefighter in every station. It don't matter what I wish and what I want, it's what can we afford. And so I think right now my main focus is going to be on getting our 2024 audit out, and then our next budget cycle, because I'm sure the clerk's going to come up here with some numbers and we're going to need to look at them. And we need to, right now, we need to be frugal with whatever money we have to make our system work better than what it has in the past. Not saying that anybody has done anything wrong as of today. We are short-staffed to be a small county, and I understand that. Go ahead. I can see you scratching and itching and bouncing.
Well, I've got it on my mind. What's the latest we could push this off this year in order for it to still be effective for the 27?
I would have to go look, and then I would have to get with Bryant Miller all up to see how long they would hold this rate for. You know, I've actually flipped through it while we were here because I actually anticipated that might be one of the questions.
Right.
And it doesn't say how long this quote would be good for, but I can't imagine they would hold that rate for long.
Sure, but I mean, it shouldn't be too significant on the increase if there were one.
Right.
It was $2,000 in 2 years.
Yeah.
Is what it was.
Right.
We
So
got
I
in
mean,
2020 at 60,000, now at 60.
61.7.
So it's not an
Right. So
astronomical amount.
at that point, you know, could we push it off till we looked at the budget cycle, went through that, and then said, yes, hey, maybe we can do this and still hit the 27 tax record. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Be
I'm
something
not
I
real
would
sure.
consider looking at.
Yeah, without sitting down and really looking at the calendar and the time frame that it takes them to do the work. I'd like to research that before I gave it.
Yeah, there's certain public notice requirements
Yeah.
that they have to have public hearings, and
Yeah.
there's certain, you're right.
Well, and how
there's
long it
certain
takes them to
deadlines
do
they
the
wanna meet.
report.
It's usually a year and a half to 2 year process anyway before you
Yeah.
ever receive any of the money.
I
Yeah.
think that was just
that's
the
right.
first
That's why I was
time.
wondering how long we could push it off before we said yes or no in
Well,
order
I would-
to maybe hit the next
I don't know that it's that long to update it. It was that long because it was our first time.
Yeah.
If you're updating numbers, I think you can do it.
Yeah,
sooner
I mean,
than that.
the contract is 150 days within receipt of all required data. So they'll send you a list of what they need, and then their quote saying that they will complete
For 5 months.
their review within 150
Within
days. Yeah.
public hearings and all that.
And then public hearings and all that afterwards.
It's at least a year process.
Yeah. So I think that you would be cutting it close, but again, we understand, you know, what the comments are here. Like I said, we're just whatever the direction of the board is. We're here to serve.
I think it's something we need to address, but this is not the time.
Right.
I still like the idea of supporting a staff at Kyler Fire Station and completing the one more person we need at Sanderson. If it's not the pleasure of the board now, I think we need to look at it again during the budget cycle or after the budget cycle and see what we can do.
Well, just for clarity purposes, this would come out of the EMS budget.
This would require a budget amendment. We don't have this money funded.
I'm just saying, but that's where we were trying to pull it out of.
Yes,
It's
yes,
called it's EMS.
yes,
But we would just have to subsidize it like we did this year with the general fund.
yes, sir.
So-
We're talking about a fire assessment, so it's a fire budget.
Right.
Well,
You said EMS.
I'm sorry.
yeah. I think he meant
You know,
fire rescue department.
I got them both in
Yeah.
one little part of my brain now because it's
Tomato,
fire
tomato.
EMS.
Yeah.
I'm trying to conserve brain here, so. But anyway,
Yes, sir.
that is correct. It would be a fire
But it would-
it would be out of the fire
subsidized
budget,
with the
but the
general
problem is
fund.
it'd be subsidized
Yes,
with
sir.
our funds, and that is the one now, if it was subsidized solely by EMS fire, and we wasn't talking about like we do road department, when we just do something with the road department, it pays for itself. We're not pulling money out of the general fund.
Yeah.
Garbage, waste, we're pulling money out of the general fund to subsidize it. So we're talking this money is gonna be general fund money. It's not gonna be, and that's the reason I hesitate.
Yep.
And if it was out of just the EMS fire budget, I wouldn't hesitate, because they're funding it, they're financing it, but they're not.
I agree.
Good.
Yeah, I think we have our direction.
Cool.
Okay. Okay, item number 4, fiscal year 22-23 audit update.
Mr. Mobley?
Mr. Mobley, I'll let you have the floor.
We have completed our 22-23 audit.
Amen. Congratulations.
Are they gonna,
Now it's on to the 23-24.
are they gonna come present to the board?
Yes.
I believe it was May 6th.
They
Was-
have
May
con-
6th, they're
yeah.
going to come present.
Yeah, I was
so
gonna say,
that-
we talked about the first meeting in
It's
May.
already been sent.
Yep. So it was submitted to JLAC yesterday. And let me read this real quick. And this is a letter from JLAC from the Florida Chief Financial Officer. Dear Chief Financial Officer and Director Zingel, in a letter dated April 1st, 2025, the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee directed, pursuant to Section 11.402 Florida statutes, the Department of Revenue and the Department of Financial Services to withhold certain funds payable to Baker County until the county had submitted the annual financial report and audit report for the 22-23 fiscal year. The withholding was to start on or after May 2nd, 2025. The county has now submitted the required financial reports. Please remove the county from the list of entities subject to further state action and do not withhold any funds from it. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to call. And that was sent from the coordinator with JLAC. And so that was submitted today. So we're good now. There's going to be no withholding coming on May 2nd. That was the date that was kind of looming because we did not hit the April 1st deadline. There still is, it's up in the air. That's something we're going to look at as far as the sales tax forfeitures that could have possibly been during this period of time. We're going to look into that and see if there was any sales tax forfeitures. You're shaking your head.
No, sir, they don't, me and her was on a conversation in the parking lot with the DOR, and they're not withholding anything.
They're not
because it's
withholding.
not submitted until next week. So we made the deadline just in time that we're not going to be hit with anything.
Praise the Lord.
We need balloons and confetti.
And
Praise
that
the
was
Lord.
brought, and that was, we just got that in the parking lot after the meeting.
Good.
So.
That's great news for sure. For
More
sure.
great news.
Yep. So that was the 2023 or 2022-2023 fiscal year audit. So that one is behind us at this point. Via a Teams call, I think it was last Friday, maybe the Friday before, James Moore instructed that if they got everything back by the 1st of May, within that first week of May from all the constitutional officers, their request list that they have sent out last week, they should be able to get this one turned around in the 2 months. If they did it in the first week of May, so they got May and June, to submit it back to JLAC by the June 30th deadline that's currently in place. So we've got through this one. I've actually reached out to all the constitutional officers today, and they all confirmed that they had received the request letter, and they were all working on getting it submitted back to us at this point. I know Ms. Cheryl's here with the county. She's working on that. I think I forget what percentage you said, 20% submitted back already. I know I've spoken with Jeffrey Cox at the sheriff's office. Him and Brad have, I think they're through the items, I don't know if it's the total itself, but they're about 50% submitted through the items. Some of the items at the end of it were larger than the beginning, but either way, they're chomping at it right now.
He was at 22 of 40, I think. was
22
last
or
I
40.
think.
Yeah, that sounds right. So each constitutional officer, they are all pushing forward because we're all in this together. I mean, Baker County as a whole, we have to submit the audit. So everything has to be back by the May 1st kind of deadline. It's a soft deadline, but we really need to try to get everything in James Moore's hand as quick as we can in order to give them ample time to turn this audit around for the 23-24 fiscal year. So that's where we're at right now. I would like to keep this on the agenda.
Okay.
At least for the next meeting, because I mean everything should be submitted, if not pretty darn close, by our next May 6th meeting. So I would like to keep everybody in the loop on that, and I believe James Moore should be presenting that day as well. So I definitely want to keep it a hot topic all the way through June at this point. So if we can push forward and get through that and get back on track with our finances.
Miss Sarah, I'm going to recommend that the process that we went through to get where we're at today with the 22-23, it's the same process that we continue on with updates, weekly updates, and then when there's responses that's been sent out that needs to be handled, I think each one of the board members needs those same responses and be kept in the loop on this thing until we get the 23-24 audit done.
Yes, sir. I'll put in a request to the auditors to make sure that we can continue to get those weekly updates and that all the communication.
He has been good at getting them to
He
me,
has
and I
been.
just want to make sure that continues.
Yes, sir.
Because we're out of the woods with this one, but we want to make sure that we get back on schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once we get back on schedule, then we can figure out how to stay on schedule.
Yes, sir.
'Cause we don't want to put ourselves, and I say ourselves, because it's one for all for one. We don't want to put ourselves back in this situation again. And if we get close to this situation, I'm hoping that there's better, and then we're going to work on the communication side too when we get through this.
Right.
There's going to be a meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hold that meeting, and we're going to learn to communicate. County's going to learn to communicate better.
Right.
Because we're one big family, and we're going to have to work as a family. And let me tell you, family don't always get along. We don't always talk. But I'm telling you, when you're in a business, I don't care if you like me or not, we in business together, you're going to have to talk. Because we don't need to be in this situation anymore.
Right.
One thing I would request is that if you could maybe send out an email to all the constitutionals and request that we be updated, as they submit. We don't need to see everything, but if we see, if it's submitted to James Moore, I would like to know about it. Just as hey, we've submitted everything, here's where we're at, or a weekly until we get to this point. We only got 3 weeks at this point.
Right.
Hey, of that, we've got, just like Mr. Cox said, 22 out of 40 items or something. We're 20% done with the county right now. Just an update for the next few weeks. That way nothing sits stagnant until we meet again.
Certainly. Can do that.
Okay, thank you.
And with all that said, I want to appreciate Commissioner Mobley for jumping on this thing. New commissioner, he's done a great job, and made me feel good. I done a good choice because he's done a great job spearing this up. I want to thank the staff at the finance for, I know, the days and the hours to try to catch all this up. We shouldn't have been here, but we are. We are. And let's do whatever it takes not to get back in that situation. We need to have that communication.
Right.
Whatever kind of help we need to get, we need to do that. But we don't know what each other needs unless we communicate. We have to communicate. And I think that if that communication would have solved a lot of this issue, we wouldn't be here. This board should have known about this 2 years ago. But I am a man of faith, and I believe in forgiving. It's hard to forget, but but we can forgive, and we can move on, and we can move on as a big, happy family like we're supposed to be. But we are family. Believe it or not, if you like me or you don't like me, you're still my family. Hey, you here in Baker County, you my family. You ain't got to like me, but you're still my family. I'm gonna hush. I'll be crying here in a minute. Big crybaby up there. You stuck with me? But I really do I appreciate the work. I know it wasn't an easy task to do what we just done. And I appreciate everyone that was involved in it. I don't know all the people who was involved in it, but I appreciate all their efforts. And I want to thank the auditors here publicly too, because I know we pushed them. And they should have been pushed, but still, we pushed them. Okay. I'm through with that. Let's move on. Anybody got anything else? We'll move to item number 5, Resolution 2025-07.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sarah, I'm sorry. I'll just step in. I apologize. I didn't realize when I was looking at the agenda that this was just under the prior business. I think we have to reschedule this to another meeting because it needs a public hearing.
They didn't say it needed a public hearing at DOR.
No, the statute does. It says if an interlocal agreement's entered into under this section that doesn't provide for automatic adjustments or periodic review by the local government, the method of distribution of local option fuel tax revenues, the parties to the agreement shall review and hold a public hearing on the terms at least every 2 years.
Every 2 years?
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know because it was never done before that. Okay, well we can do that. That's not a problem. But like I said, when we presented this to DOR, that wasn't part of the conversations that we had. But certainly we've got to follow what the statute says.
Yeah, like I said, I apologize. I was thinking it was just the agreement. I didn't realize. I was just looking based on the statutory reference in the resolution for that.
Yes, sir. Okay, we can do that. We'll get it advertised for the next commission
I
meeting.
have a motion to table Resolution 2025-07.
Second.
I need a motion.
Oh, you need
I
a
can't
motion?
make a motion.
I have a motion to table Resolution 2025-07.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. County Manager.
I do not have anything. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you. County Attorney.
I don't usually say this, but please say a prayer. Because I was curious about all the emergency sirens going on. And apparently there was an armed robbery and a shooting at the Royals gas station next to the Coop.
Yep.
So say a prayer for any of those people involved. I don't have anything else. Yeah, it sounds like he was life-flighted to Frazier.
Okay. We'll move into Commissioner comments. I'll start with Commissioner Mobley.
One of the things I want to point out and look at, I talked to Mr. Conkey today with St. Johns County Water Management District, and one of the things I asked him again was, who could help, if we could look at some outside resources to help get our water sewer standards a little bit more relevant. That's something I've been looking into for a minute. I think it's upon us now that we really need to dive into them and make sure that our standards are up to date. And I reached out to him, and I reached out to an old friend that worked at JEA as well, and he actually helped write the book for JEA on the water wastewater standards that they currently have. So 2 of those options, and just to see if there's a outside firm or anybody that could come in and take our current standards and kind of mimic. Or bring them up to date. It's not something we need to reinvent the wheel with. It's every municipality has them. So what could we do to bring as a county up to date? So that's something I definitely want to work on. Other than that, praise the Lord for the audit. We got it done. So now, like I said, we're right on to the next one.
Amen. Commissioner Hartley.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Mann.
We're all professionals. Congratulations to all the constitutional officers and their staff. on getting the audit completed without being penalized. Congratulations to the county staff for being a part of that and keeping things moving and getting it all done on time. We all love Baker County. We're all from Baker County. It's the place we'll all spend the rest of our life, I hope. And I appreciate the efforts of everybody to get us there. The opportunity to continue to move forward, continue to build on what we already have is ahead of us. We just need to complete the audit that we have at hand on time and get back on schedule. And like Commissioner Anderson says, we're all family. We're all professionals also. So we need to treat each other with respect and move forward in a professional way. That's all I have.
Amen. I think I've already said enough tonight, but I would say I had a grandbaby this weekend, and I would appreciate prayers. He's not breathing very well. He actually had a good night last night, but I would like if y'all would remember him in prayer so he could come home and be with his mom and his daddy. But he's not doing very well right now. But last night he had a good night, so I'm hoping that was the turn. But I would appreciate your prayers. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.